So thank you for your time, and I appreciate your efforts as council members.
Thank you, Patton. Who else is there, Clerk Halenga? You're muted. I'm sorry.
The next person with the hand raised is Sensei Change Associates rather. I'm going to allow them to talk now.
Hi, this is actually John Newman from the back office studio. Sensei Change Associates is our sister company. I also manage a business on North Washington, and I just wanted to put my vote in for and encourage closing the streets and bold action. Really love to find ways to get people down here sooner rather than later. A little bit like Patton, you know, I'm not going to take my business out on the sidewalk, but I am happy to make that available to the restaurants, ice cream shops, other places on our street and downtown in general. Thank you.
Thank you, John. That's is who else would like to comment at this time?
The next individual with their hand up was Sean Cool, and I will allow them to talk now.
Thank you. Welcome, Sean. Please state your name for the record.
Hi, this is Sean Cool. I represent Red Rock Downtown Barbecue and president of the DAY. We had extensive talk about maybe what we would like to see done with the street closures on our own meeting. And at the last DDA meeting where this motion was approved to bring to City Council, I did have my hand up before the vote, but was not heard. I just like to take this opportunity to just give you a quick, brief moment of my thoughts here. I'm torn, to be quite honest with you. I like the idea of bringing positive energy to downtown Ypsilanti, and a street closure can do that. The problem lies within the other districts, West Cross in particular, that has been left out of this equation here. And then Depot Town itself, who already has a lot of patio seating, and they have a lot of real estate. And I know they have their parking issues, but I don't see parking being such a big problem moving forward here. I know that Sidetrack is already transforming their parking lot into a dining area. I see Aubrey's has their patio out. I know Mays has their rear patio. They have parking in the rear of all of these buildings. And if we shut down the entire street for Depot Town, 3 restaurants who probably make up 50% out of major restaurants in the entire city, we take Cross Street and downtown combined, they're probably 50% of it between 3 restaurants. If we create a hub outside of those other regions, I feel we're going to be left in the dust. And I think maybe some adjustments should be made. Maybe it's not full street closures. Maybe they're partial. Maybe they are just parking. Maybe they're one direction. I know that this has to go through quickly because time is of the essence right now. We've been closed for 3 months and it's time to reopen. So I just hope that you take careful consideration of those restaurants who will not be directly affected. And maybe we make use of some of our parking lots, like behind Bobcat Bonnie's and soon to be Hamburger Mary's. There'll be a restaurant on all 4 streets that surround that parking lot in the rear. I know not everybody's for that, but it's a possibility to still make something happen and not jeopardize a lot of restaurants that may be left behind. I just feel like maybe we all should have been part of the conversation before this was taken forward as far as it has. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Clerk Halenga, who's next, please?
The next individual with their hand raised was Lamar Weir, and I'll allow them to talk now.
Good evening, Lamar Weir from Congresswoman Dingell's office. I'm just here to get general updates about what's happening in the community, and really interested in seeing where you all go with the proposed agenda. And that's it.
Welcome, Lamar. Thank you very much for coming. Please give our best to Congresswoman Dingell.
Will do.
Clerk Halenga.
The next individual with their hand raised was Celeste Kanpurwala, and I apologize if I pronounced that incorrectly. I'll allow them to talk now.
Hi, everybody, and thank you. Yes, you did pronounce my last name correctly. It's just like it's spelled. And thank you to Mayor Bashert for your assistance with making this upcoming Saturday as National Gun Violence Awareness Day. Like I said, my name is Celeste Camperwalla, and I represent Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America, for those of you who don't know me, but I do know several of you. And just want to remind all of you that this Friday will be our National Gun Violence Awareness Day, or Wear Orange Day. I actually didn't realize that I wasn't going to be on the screen for this conference because I'm wearing my Wear Orange shirt. I have orange makeup on and everything. I'm all dolled up for y'all. But I'll just have to take a picture. But anyway, I've got my orange on. I'll be wearing it all week and all weekend. And I just want to remind you all that over 100 Americans die from gun violence each day in this country. 2/3 of them are suicides, and unfortunately right now with the pandemic going on, there's a lot of, there's an increased risk for suicide, and there's also an increased risk for domestic violence. And before my dad took his life with his shotgun, he actually unfortunately was domestically abusive as well. So I'm a survivor twofold, and so I just wanted to share that with all of you and ask that you please wear your orange all weekend long in honor of victims and survivors of gun violence. Thank you.
Thank you, Celeste, and thank you for the work of Moms Against Gun Violence. Clerk Kalenga, who's next?
The next individual with their hand raised was Bob Krezowinski, and I'll allow Bob K to talk now. Bob, you have to unmute yourself.
All right.
Oops.
I'm learning. All right. You hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. Bob Kowinski, 706 Dwight Street, also with the City Non-Motorized Advisory Committee. And regarding the street closures, if this is approved for the duration of those, it would be great to have a campaign also too to get people to try and walk or bike down to the areas where the additional seating would be. And even if they can't drive, or walk all the way, maybe they could drive to a point further out, and you got a 5 or 10 minute walk in. But this would be a great way to promote, both walking and bicycle use to get people to parts of our city.
Thank you, Bob. I agree with you. Let's get that campaign going. Who's next, Clerk Kalenga?
The next individual with their hand up is Jesse Kraniak, and I'll let him talk now, and I apologize if I mispronounced the name.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
This is Jesse Kraniak. I represent three businesses actually in Ypsilanti. The Worst Bar on Cross Street, and Landline on Pearl Street, and the soon-to-be Bellflower on Pearl Street, which will be opening here this summer. I'm here. I've written most of you or talked with you on the phone. Annie, Anthony, and Steve. I really appreciate our phone call time we had. And Mayor, thank you for answering my emails today. I have major concerns about this street closure. I think I've expressed them pretty clearly in my emails. But to reiterate here, I think this is a completely inappropriate time to start some sort of a movement like this in our town. We're all coming out of COVID. We've all been in this together. 50% occupancy is fine. We're all in it together. But offering these certain restaurants that are already, have prime real estate, the advantage of having 200 and 300% of their normal occupancy by utilizing these larger areas, when they already have all this additional outdoor seating that we don't have, you're gonna put us out of business. I mean, there's really no other way to say it. Sean was kind of being political there, but it's not going to be good for a lot of other places. You're going to bring a lot of people. You're going to attract them. You're going to funnel business into these areas, and they're going to pull business away from us. And this is not the time to do that. And I would fully support a street closure and outdoor alcohol, all of it, in, you know, maybe next year. But I don't know how you guys expect me to, you know, come out of COVID with 50% occupancy, you know, 6 outdoor seats, and you offered me the street parking where people are going 40 miles an hour, you know, by our business. We're just not going to, we just can't compete in that market if you do offer this as a way to move forward for these other businesses. So that's about all I have to say there.
Thank you, Jesse. Clerk Halenga, who is next?
Excuse me, the next individual with their hand up is Valerie Brown, and I'll allow them to speak now.
So yes, I'm Valerie Brown, and I am just here this evening to talk about a statement that was made last week during audience participation when our mayor came into the meeting. And I just want to say that that statement about Lee Tucson, my husband, being homophobic is so unfair to our community, because his feelings about whatever he expressed could be the feelings of any other community member. Because someone does not identify with the views of another does not make them homophobic. We all have our set of values and principles. And, you know, to come into a meeting the way you came in, Mayor Pro Temp was doing a wonderful job in your absence. As everyone scrambled, they had no idea where you were. It was not that you had a excuse absent, you were just simply late. And the posture in which you came in was totally inappropriate. Every one of you are elected by our community to represent us. So when you sit there, it's not your agenda. You are working for us. And so you may have personal views about the issues that you discuss, and you may want to vote in that manner. But I'm here to tell you that your vote should not represent yourself. Your vote represents your constituents. So when you walk into a meeting and one of your constituents voices their opinion, their idea of what they feel about a certain something, the answer is not to come in to say that, oh, I see that, you know, we had someone who's being homophobic. I think that's totally disrespectful. I think that that's not the demeanor that we expect from our mayor. I think you're bigger than that, or at least you should act bigger than that. You know, that every time you open up your mouth to speak, even when you use the gavel, okay, when you hit that on that table, it's an opportunity for you to redirect yourself, redirect your attention, and control and present yourself in a manner that supports all people. Again, not siding with LGBTQ population does not make someone homophobic. People have religious beliefs that does not position them to feel or believe the same way you believe. So please, you know, address that with our community and let them know that people have a right to have their own opinions, and it does not make them homophobic.
Thank you, Valerie. Clerk Halenga, who is next?
The next individual with the hand up is Dana Popke. I'll allow them to speak now.
Welcome, Dana. Please state your name for the record.
5 seconds. Dana's running into the market right now. She's going to be in just a second.
You can give her 5 seconds.
Yep, I just said you were running in 5 seconds. State your name and your address. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, my name is Dana Popke. I live at 129 Miles in Ward 3. I'm a lifelong Ypsilanti resident. I'm speaking to you today to ask for an investment in communities and a divestment from police departments in solidarity with the movement for Black Lives. I will admit this is not something I know a lot about, but I know that there will be people speaking to you today that do, and I encourage you to listen to them and learn more about what it would look like to divest from police in Ypsilanti. I run the Ypsilanti farmers markets. I want someone else to call that comes to the market when I have an issue, that doesn't have a gun and doesn't inflict more trauma on our residents and our shoppers. Additionally, as a member of the queer community in Ypsilanti, I appreciate council's attempt to celebrate Pride with the flag, but not now or ever is it appropriate to hang a Pride flag at the police station. Until we can have a official flagpole somewhere other than the police department, please do not raise a Pride flag. That is all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Dana. I can see the names, Clerk Halenga. I can continue to call on people, I think.
Sure.
You want? Okay. Audrey Anderson, I think you're next. Please state your name for the record.
Again, sorry. I don't know.
Oh, again? Okay, I apologize, Audrey. I apologize. All right, Andrew French, you are next. Please state your name for the record.
Excellent. Can everyone hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. My name's Andy French. I'm with Aubrey's Pizzeria and Grill, and I'm here to talk about the plan to expand outdoor seating into public spaces. As I'm sure you're aware, the hospitality industry has been devastated due to the COVID-19 crisis. According to the data from the Michigan Restaurant and Lodging Association, 20 restaurants per day are permanently closing in the state of Michigan right now. We're beginning to see this in Washtenaw County with the closure of Wilma's, Prickly Pear, and Arbor Brewing in Ann Arbor. And across the state, we've seen Hopcat and Royal Oak, many Shake and Steaks, Logan Steakhouses, the Bravo Restaurant in Kalamazoo, Marcona on Lyon in Grand Rapids, and the Town Tavern in Royal Oak all announced that they were permanently closing recently. Many of the restaurant closures that have been reported are large, successful brands that could not survive the extended shutdown. Excuse me. How many small independent restaurants have not or will not be able to survive this crisis, and the media has not covered their story? The governor and her administration are aware of the devastation occurring in the hospitality and retail industries right now, and have worked to give us the tools to mitigate our losses that we're experiencing while ensuring we're implementing the best health and safety procedures for our community. One of the ideas that has been embraced by the governor's office is the expansion of outdoor seating into public space. We're seeing several communities across the state, such as Traverse City, Frankenmuth, Birmingham, South Haven, Lake Orion, Ann Arbor, and others embrace this idea to support their small business community. I'm asking the City Council to add Ypsilanti to the growing list of communities taking advantage of the opportunity to expand businesses into public spaces. As businesses begin to reopen, it's critical to our survival that we can show our customers that they can frequent our businesses and do it in a safe manner. I'm asking City Council to appreciate our survival is at risk and share our sense of urgency. There are a limited number of weeks businesses will be able to take advantage of the expanded outdoor business. I ask Council to vote tonight to approve this plan and give us an opportunity to survive. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andrew. And next we have Sasha Anazov. And Sasha, can you please state your name for the record? The floor is yours.
Hi, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Hi, so actually my name is Katrina Hammond. Sasha Aznov is my wife, and we are both here. We are Ypsilanti residents, and our comment is directly related about the Ypsilanti Police Department and budget. Every time protests erupt after another Black person is killed by police, reform is floated as an option, but as we can see, that doesn't work. What if drastically defunding the police is the best way to stop unnecessary violence and death committed by law enforcement against Black and brown people? Just looking at IPSI's recent budget, a large portion is dedicated to police in comparison to other community funds. What is the city doing to remedy this? Also, as a gay person, I echo what the other person said about raising the pride flag at the police station, and also gay people get to decide what is homophobic. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Sasha. There's no more hands up that I can see. Is there anybody else who would like to give comment at this time? And I'll hold on for a second or so while I wait for anybody new.
Hey, Mayor, while we're doing this, I just want to let you guys know if I'm looking down, I switched, so I'm looking into my iPad and my phone is where my notes are. So if I keep looking down, I'm listening.
Thank you. All right, I see nobody else for public comment. I'm going to close public comment at this time. And next, we're going to go into our presentations. And Mayor Pro Tem, the first resolution is yours, I do believe. You need to unmute yourself.
Yes,
Thank
it
you.
is.
Council, I'll be sharing the screen now, so in case anything changes, that's why.
Thank you. Resolved by the Council of the City of Ypsilanti. Whereas the City Council of the City of Ypsilanti is outraged and appalled by the recent murders of George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, Tony McDade, and countless other African Americans that have lost their lives to racial violence and police brutality. And whereas the City of Ypsilanti grieves with the families and communities across the nation and calls for accountability of those who perpetuate violence under the badge of law. And whereas historic, systemic, and pervasive racism and traumas of colonization and slavery make people of color, particularly African Americans and indigenous communities in our country, fear for their families' health, safety, and lives every single day. And whereas racism is a social system with multiple dimensions, individual racism that is internalized or interpersonal, systemic racism that is institutional or structural, and is a system of structuring opportunity and assigning value based on the social interpretation of how one looks, and whereas racism unfairly disadvantages specific individuals and communities, while unfairly giving advantages to other individuals and communities, and saps the strength of the whole society through the waste of human resources. And the City of Ypsilanti's collective prosperity depends upon the equitable access to opportunity for every resident, regardless of the color of their skin. And whereas racism causes persistent discrimination and disparate outcomes in many areas of life, including housing, education, employment, and criminal justice, and an emerging body of research demonstrates that racism itself is a social determinant of health. And whereas based on population percentages, African Americans experience systemic inequity per capita nationally. And whereas communities of color, working class residents, and those that suffer from disabilities are more likely to experience poor health outcomes as a consequence of their social determinants of health inequities stemming from economic stability, education, physical environment, food, and access to health care systems. And whereas a contemporary example of such disparity is highlighted by the coronavirus data in Washtenaw County. 12% of the county population are African American, yet account for 34% of the diagnosis. And whereas more than 100 studies have linked racism to worse health outcomes, and whereas no change will be realized until white citizens of the country stand beside those exclaiming for justice, and be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Ypsilanti 1, assert that racism is a public health crisis affecting our entire country. 2, work to progress as an equity and justice-oriented organization with the City Council and its staff leadership continuing to identify specific activities to further enhance diversity and to ensure anti-racism principles across City Council leadership, staffing, and contracting. 3, promote equity through all policies approved by the City Council and enhance educational efforts aimed at understanding, addressing, and dismantling racism and how it affects the delivery of human and social services, economic development, and public safety. 4, continue to advocate locally for relevant policies that improve health in communities of color and supports local, state, regional, and federal initiatives that advance efforts to dismantle systemic racism. 5, further work to solidify alliances and partnerships with other organizations that are confronting racism and encourage other local, state, regional, and national entities to recognize racism as a public health crisis. 6, support community efforts to amplify issues of racism and engage actively and authentically with communities of color wherever they live. 7, to always promote and support policies that prioritize the health of all people, especially people of color, by mitigating exposure to adverse childhood experiences. 8, continue ongoing racial equity training with the goal of reaching all City of Ypsilanti leadership and staff. 9, encourage racial equity training among all community partners, grantees, vendors, and contractors. 10, identify clear goals and objectives, including periodic reports to the City Council to assess progress and capitalize on opportunities to further advance racial equity. And be it further resolved that City Council supports all additional efforts in the City of Ypsilanti, State of Michigan, and nationwide to address racism and public health disparities due to racial inequities. And be it further resolved that the City Council of the City of Ypsilanti declares there will be zero tolerance for police brutality by the City of Ypsilanti Police Department. And be it further resolved that the City Council of the City of Ypsilanti call upon the Governor, the Speaker of the Michigan House, and the Michigan State Majority Leader to join with us to declare racism as a public health crisis and to enact equity in all policies of the state of Michigan. And I so move.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Discussion among council. Can I see the full screen, clerk? I apologize. Thank you. Discussion among council. Councilor Somerville.
Oh yeah, I just wanted to say thank you. I'm sorry. Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you to Lois for doing the work to get this on the agenda. I've been thinking a lot over the last week about the additional stress that you and Councilmember Brown and Councilmember Morgan and City Manager McMullen have to deal with in city leadership. Local government is inherently racist because it's made that way by design. So I just want to say thank you for bringing this forward. I fully support it, and I hope that we can all work together to kind of undo a lot of the systemic racism that is woven into local government. So I really appreciate you. I've been thinking about you a lot over the last few days, and I'm grateful that you were able to get this together on tonight's agenda.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Somerville. Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes. You know, this is a beautiful resolution. and we can pass it. But if we don't put it into action, it actually means much of nothing. If we pass this resolution, and I certainly hope we do, we need to make sure that we follow through on every part of this resolution. And not just say, oh, we got a resolution against racism, that racism is a public health crisis, but don't follow up and do the work. It's time for us to do the work and make sure that this resolution is not just a resolution on paper or a digital resolution, but a resolution that the city of Ypsilanti and the council of the city of Ypsilanti, this council and councils going forward, do everything they can to bring it into reality.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
You know, it doesn't do us any good. And I've seen us do that in times past with resolutions and ordinances. We passed them, but then that's where they sat. They were passed. But we must do the work. And it's going to require a commitment from each one of us as council members. It's going to require a commitment of us as staff. And something that I said at the meeting yesterday, at the Park Ridge meeting, and I believe there were 57 people on that call, out in that meeting yesterday. The only way things are going to change, and the only way we're going to actually get rid of in institutional racism and systemic racism and interpersonal racism, is that it must begin with us. Each one of us must come to a place where we're willing to say, change begins with me. And not just say it, but mean it. Do the work on the inside to make sure that change is happening. That's the only way we're going to see it. And if we can get that kind of commitment out of the city council members and the staff of the city of Ypsilanti, then we can truly have a great city.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
But it's going to take work. It's going to take work, and it's going to take a commitment from everyone. And Mayor, I'll stop when I'm through, okay?
You're fine.
Take a commitment from all of us. Not just me, not just Councilmember Morgan or Councilmember Brown or the city manager or the police or the fire chief. It's going to take a commitment from all of us that I'm sick and tired of racism hanging over my life and all of my family's life and all of the lives of my friends. I'm sick and tired of racism hanging over the city of Ypsilanti. It's time for a change, and change must begin with us. Must begin with me, with you, and you, and you, and you. And if we're not willing to make that commitment, then we need to really stop and look and say, am I really supposed to be on city council? Enough is enough is enough is enough. And it's time for a change. And change must begin with each one of us. And I'm done.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Councilor Brown, then Councilor Morgan.
So first, I would also like to thank Mayor Pro Tem for spearheading this resolution and for the conversation that we had last night about all the things that we need to be doing to really work against systematic, oppression and racism in our communities far and wide, but particularly where we have jurisdiction here in the city of Ypsilanti. I think that anyone who is living and breathing right now, I don't know if anyone can honestly say that it's been a great week, year, hundreds of years really for Black people in America. And so as we move forward with this resolution, I also too hope that, of course, that it passes. I agree with everything that Mayor Pro Tem said. And one thing that I have been spending a lot of my time recently working on are policy items that we can actionable items that we can do in our community and as a body to really help move us forward. Because as Mayor Pro Tem said, we've passed resolutions like this before. None naming this a public health crisis in the past, but discussing these same acts, these same egregious crimes, these same murders over and over and over again, and several times in my short 6 years being on council. And so, you know, it is time for us to really put our boots to the ground and do the work and stop talking about it and be about it. And so also in line with this resolution, and I did talk to Mayor Pro Tem last night, I have some items that I plan to bring forth to our next meeting that are actionable on top of these wonderful things that were in this beautifully written resolution for us to really start just taking charge and moving forward as a community, because there's much work to do on many fronts. But in this one in particular, as we see what's happening across the nation and locally, we have to stop talking about it and we have to be about it. And so with that, I won't take up any more time, but thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Brown. Councilor Morgan. You're muted. Oh.
All right, there it is. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, for bringing this resolution forward. Thank you for all those who supported it. I just have a few words to say about this resolution. And it is a resolution, and basically it's just a strongly worded decision, a determination. It's not a solution, which means to solve challenging issues. So it's not a solution, it's a resolution. That means it's just words on a paper that means this would be nice to do and awesome. But as I was thinking about it, I'm so glad. If you can hear me out here, citizens, I am so glad that I'm sitting in this seat, because I was thinking about the last time, as I'm sitting on these meetings, just take this second just to hear what I'm saying. They're talking about Black male bodies. No offense to anybody else, and I'm not trying to compare plights, but which seems to be the most expendable body, the Black male body and the Black male voice. And the beat, like since Ricky Jefferson was on council, and thank God that Chief Hobbs got his position, but they haven't even been Black males in positions of leadership, direction, inclusion. When you think about a city structure, talking about people in leadership positions, I'm so grateful. That means it's so often how we have policy written, we have policy interpreted without a Black male eyes on it, who are looked at as the hunted and the most marginalized. That is absolutely crazy to think about fairness. So when we think about a resolution as a health crisis, and like they were talking about the restaurants, it is about survival, and it is a necessity, and it is distinct, our voice. It is rare. It is a blessing to have like I say, I'm looking for a solution. I'm tired of resolutions because they have to keep getting enacted, and they're very weak and they're not enforceable. So forgive me, but I'm glad that we're moving toward this idea of recognizing something that's been blatant for the history of our life, which is a health crisis, just now recognized. But so this is not things, and when people talk about safety and police departments, out of the last 130 bodies that's been on the ground here in Ipsy, they've been Black boy bodies. So I don't know what this fear is. We're still in danger. We're still hunted. So when we're talking about a crisis, we're talking about police budgets or whatever we're talking about, the center of it is Black males, either at the butt of the joke or the villain. So thank you for having this, and no offense to any other person's plight. I'm just saying, as a person who was the only Black male on this one besides Chief Hobbs. So thank you. I appreciate us being considered, being less than most people.
Thank you, Councilor Morgan. Who else would like to speak to this? Councilor Wilcoxon.
Hi, I just wanted to say thank you to Lois for bringing this comprehensive resolution, and I agree with some of it. This is not empty words. It is on paper, but again, as you so eloquently stated, we need to do this work, and I'm tired of seeing it. So, and that's all I've got to say.
Thank you, Councilor Wilcoxon. Who else would like to speak to it at this time? I would just like to add my voice of support and praise for the resolution and for the call to action that accompanied it. I think this is an incredible resolution. And I don't know that it states here who it's being sent to, but Clerk Kalenga, I would like to see this sent to the governor and to our state and federal level representatives, please. just to spread the word that we've done this. And I would like to, I also second Mayor Pro Tem's statement that sometimes we pass resolutions and we think, oh yeah, all done. And I agree, let's step up, let's put leather on the ground, let's stand up and do what we have to do. I would like to see this be a guiding principle for our city as we move forward. So thank you. Seeing no other comments, Clerk Kalenga, please call the roll.
Councilmember Brown,
Yes.
Councilmember Somerville,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Richardson,
Yes.
Councilmember Morgan,
Yes.
Councilmember Simmons,
Yes.
Mayor Bashir,
Yes.
Councilmember Wilcoxon.
Yes.
For 7 yes, the motion carries unanimously.
Excellent. Clerk Kalenga, can you read the next proclamation, please?
This proclamation declares the first Friday in June to be National Gun Violence Awareness Day in the city of Ypsilanti, to honor and remember all victims and survivors of gun violence, and to declare that we as a country must do more to reduce gun violence. Whereas every day, more than 100 Americans are killed by gun violence, and on average, there are more than 13,000 gun homicides every year. And whereas Americans are 25 times more likely to die by gun homicide than people in other high-income countries. And whereas in Michigan has almost 1,200 gun deaths every year with a rate of 11.8 deaths per 100,000 people. Michigan has the 30th highest rate of gun deaths in the US. And whereas gun homicides predominantly occur in cities, with more than half of all firearm-related gun deaths in the nation occurring in 127 cities. And whereas cities across the nation, including in Ypsilanti, are working to end the senseless violence with evidence-based solutions. And whereas protecting public safety in the communities they serve as mayor's highest responsibility. And whereas support of the Second Amendment rights of law-abiding citizens goes hand in hand with keeping guns away from people with dangerous histories. And whereas mayors and law enforcement officers know their communities best, are the most familiar with local crime activity and how to address it, and are best positioned to understand how to keep their citizens safe. And whereas the pandemic facing America has drastically impacted communities and individuals sheltering in place, may result in situations where access to firearms results in increased risk in intimate partner with violence, gun deaths, suicide by gun, and unintentional shootings. Whereas in January 2013, Hadia Pendleton, a teenager who marched in the presidential inaugural parade and was tragically shot and killed just weeks later, should be now celebrating her 23rd birthday. And whereas to help honor Hadia and the more than 100 Americans whose lives are cut short every day, and the countless survivors who are injured by shootings every day, a national coalition of organizations has designated June 5th, 2020, the first Friday in June, as a 6th National Gun Violence Awareness Day. And whereas the idea was inspired by a group of Hadia's friends who asked their classmates to commemorate her life by wearing orange. They chose this color because hunters wear orange to announce themselves to other hunters when out in the woods, and orange is a color that symbolizes the value of human life. And whereas anyone can join this campaign by pledging to wear orange on June 5th, the first Friday in June in 2020, to help raise awareness about gun violence. And whereas by wearing orange on June 5th, 2020, Americans will raise awareness about gun violence and honor the lives of gun violence victims and survivors. And whereas renew our commitment to reduce gun violence and pledge to do all we can to keep firearms out of wrong hands and encourage responsible gun ownership to help keep our children safe. Now therefore be it resolved that Mayor Bashir of the city of Ypsilanti declares the first Friday in June, June 5th, 2020 to be National Gun Violence Awareness Day. I encourage all citizens to support their local communities' efforts to prevent the tragic effects of gun violence and to honor and value human lives.
Thank you.
Proclamation.
We vote on a proclamation?
Yeah, this was the proclamation is what was sent. This is what we did last year as well.
Okay. Excellent. It's been moved. Is there support?
It's a proclamation.
Oh, it's just a proclamation. Okay, good. Thank you. That's what I thought. Clerk Kalenga, could you please do us the favor of sending out this proclamation via the news flash on Friday to kick off National Gun Violence Awareness Day?
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. I would greatly appreciate that. Council, would you like to say anything on this at all? This is a time where we are experiencing a seasonal, weirdly, uptick in gun violence in our city. Council Morgan, did you have something?
I just want to say I completely support this proclamation, and even if it was a resolution, I would support it. I've worked closely with Moms Demand Action. I have been to some of the meetings, and I do think, and I was really candid about, I think death by gun affects many Americans. I just do. Again, there is a special place that I think African Americans play in that, especially when we're talking about law enforcement. So I definitely agree with a lot of it. It makes me move a little bit when I think about the color orange and hunted and stuff like that. So I am open to definitely thinking reducing gun violence in America. But I just think I was talking to them about making it to certain communities that make it more genuine.
Thank you, Council Morgan. Further comments on this? Councilor Brown.
Yeah, I'm just, pleased that it's on the agenda. We had this on the agenda last year, and I too have communicated with several groups, but in particular the Moms Against Gun Violence. And, just in remembering that we have done things in the community to really assist with the effects of gun violence with young people. And so I'm hoping that we see some of those same initiatives continue, and that wasn't just a one-time deal like last year with the gun buyback and the locks that we were giving out and different things that we've tried to do. So I'm hoping and talking with some of the organizers that we've worked with in the past about how do we make sure this becomes like something that happens all the time and not just necessarily during the month of June or during Gun Awareness Month, because it was very successful and continues to be. And as much awareness as we can spread and information we can get out to the community, in particular our young people, the better.
Thank you, Councilor Brown. Who else would like to make a comment at this time? I just want to thank City Council and staff and Moms Against Gun Violence. We are experiencing, as evidenced by the work of Chief DeGiusti, a lot of gun violence at this time in our city. And sadly, it's become all too easy for us to say things like it's that time of year and things like that. And when we have an epidemic of too many guns in the country, cities like Ypsilanti suffer very, very deeply. And I would like to continue to do the work of whatever we can to reduce gun violence and the impact of it in our community. And so thank you for that. Any further comments? Thank you. Seeing none. Clerk Kalenga. I think the next one is actually Bonnie's presentation.
That's correct, Mayor. I'm going to share my screen for the presentation.
Great, thank you. Bonnie Wessler, the floor is yours.
You'd think at this point in the game I would actually know how to work Zoom, but it still takes me a minute now. Sorry. Good evening, Council. It's a pleasure to see you all here tonight. This is a topic we've all seen before, once or twice. We are redoing it because of a little bit of a bureaucratic hiccup. They said they wanted public comment, so I went ahead and did public comment last time. They actually wanted a public hearing, so we're doing it as a public hearing, which is vastly different from public comment, of course. So thank you for bearing with me as we rehash this a little bit. So tonight we're talking about our Natural Resources Trust Fund grant application for the I-94 crossing, non-motorized bridge crossing. Let me actually see if I can bring up the presentation on my screen too. That would be great. So as we all know, there's not currently a safe non-motorized crossing over I-94 at Huron Street. It's been a barrier between the communities since the bridge's construction. It prevents Ypsilanti Township residents from getting into Ypsilanti City and vice versa. It's been called out in our master plan, non-motorized plan, and our Parks and Recreation plan as a deficiency for ages and ages. It's been a regional deficiency in Watts's long-range plan, and Ypsilanti Township recognizes it as a deficiency also. So as you know, we partnered with MDOT, and MDOT applied and was awarded for Transportation Alternatives Program grant to complete the design and eventually construction of this crossing. It is a pretty expensive project though, probably about $3.5 million. So we do need to come up with a little bit of match. We are applying for this Natural Resources Trust Fund grant to cover about half of the required construction match. So this is for $300,000. Eventually the city will be expected to contribute some money from its own coffers, but we would like to bulk of that to come from other private grantors, of course. So we have before us, this is the alternative that we are hoping to construct. It basically takes the westernmost lane of Huron Street as it crosses over 94 and turns it into a shared use path. Part of this is also teeing up the on-ramp to I-94 eastbound as well. It's a pretty straightforward project, just very expensive, and we hope to have council support in applying for this Natural Resources Trust Fund grant.
Thank you very much. I'd now like to open the floor for public comment. That would be the next step. We did get some messages today from folks. I know that there's some people that are very interested and animated on this. Bob Kay, you've got 3 minutes. The floor is yours. I think you're muted. Is he? Okay.
All right, there I am. Okay. Hey, Bob Kowinski, 706 Dwight, also on the non-motorized advisory committee. And the non-motorized committee has been firmly behind this project all the way, and the sooner it happens, the better. I still just go back and think of days when maybe I had to go to the Metro Airport real early in the morning, like before 6 p.m. It's snowing out, and there are people there straddling the road trying to get into Ypsi Township. We need to put that to rest and have people have a safe place to be able to get to work or get to some shopping that they really need to do if they don't have a car or even if they have a bike. So again, the support of council has been great on this, and I just ask you to keep it up.
Thank you, Bob. Who else would like to give comment on the exciting plan for 94 Bridge? Gabriella, your hand up? Oh, I apologize. Okay, seeing none, I'm going to ask Clerk Kalanga to read the closure of the public comment, and then we'll have that vote.
Resolved by the Council of the City of Ypsilanti that the public hearing regarding the submission of a development application to the Michigan Department of Natural Resources for the Huron Pathway Project be officially closed.
Is there a motion to approve?
I so move.
Thank you. Is there a second? Thank you. It's been moved and supported. That would be Councilor Somerville supported. Clerk Kalanga, please call the roll.
Did we discuss it?
Yeah, do we get some discussion?
Oh, I
Well,
apologize.
this is the public hearing, so you will need to vote on the public hearing as well.
I'm sorry. Well, we're just closing the session. We're just closing the public comment. Council Morgan, did you want to discuss keeping public comment open?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's close the session and then have discussion among council. Clerk Kalanga?
Councilmember Somerville,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Richardson. Oh, she's away. Councilmember Morgan,
Yes.
Councilmember Simmons,
Yes.
Mayor Bashir,
Yes.
Councilmember Wilcoxon,
Yes.
Councilmember Brown.
Yes.
With 6 yes and 1 absent, the motion carries.
Thank you. Discussion. Questions. Councilor Wilcoxon.
I think this is just a really straightforward thing. I mean, we've all agreed to go ahead with this project, and it's been in the works for years, and with the design and stuff, and just approving them to find some money to take up our part of it is what we're working on here tonight. So I think it's fairly straightforward.
Thank you. Councilor Morgan?
So us receiving, is this the only grant we're going for this project, or we're going for multiple grants? And if we don't receive this grant, does that halt our portion of finding the money we need to contribute?
Bonnie, is this yours to answer?
This is mine to answer. If we don't receive this grant, we will apply for more grants. This doesn't halt anything. This is just, we have a little bit of time to come up with the money, and we are going
How much time exactly? And can we apply for multiple grants at a time?
Oh, we can apply for multiple grants at a time. Absolutely. We just can't apply for like 3 natural trust fund grants for the exact same project.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm still on the lookout for money. If you know anybody with a couple $100,000 laying around, just send me their number.
My cousin Chris, but okay, no. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Further comments or questions from council?
He doesn't keep change though. I'm sorry.
Further questions? We have discussed this a few times, so I would understand if there's not a lot of comment. I just want to make sure. Seeing none, Clerk Kalenga?
Mayor, we have to put the resolution on the table, so I'm going to read this grant is a kind of a strange process. We had to have the public hearing and the resolution as separate items. So I'm going to, if it's okay with council, I'll put this resolution on the table.
Thank you.
Resolved by the Council of the City of Ypsilanti, whereas the city strongly supports safe non-motorized transportation and safe access to recreation opportunities for people of all abilities and incomes, and whereas the need for a safe crossing of I-94 at Huron Street for pedestrians and bicyclists is incorporated in the city's master plan, non-motorized plan, and 5-year approved parks and recreation master plan. And whereas a TAP grant has been awarded for the design and construction of such a crossing administered by the Washtenaw County Road Commission and MDOT for an anticipated amount of $3.3 million for the construction, for which any NRTF award would be used as a match. And whereas the city, whereas the need for a safe crossing is incorporated in the city's master plan and non-motorized plan, and now therefore be it resolved that the City Council hereby authorizes the submission of a development application to the Michigan Department of Natural Resources Trust Fund in the amount of $300,000 for the Huron Pathway Project, matched by the conditional TAP award for the state of Michigan fiscal year 2022, fiscal year 2021-22.
Thank you.
So moved.
Been moved.
Support.
Supported. Thank you very much. Further discussion? Seeing none, Clerk Kalenga, please call the roll.
Mayor Pro Tem Richardson.
Yes.
Councilmember Morgan.
Yes.
Councilmember Simmons.
Yes.
Mayor Bashert.
Yes.
Councilmember Wilcoxon.
Absolutely, yes.
Councilmember Brown.
Yes.
Councilmember Somerville.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you very much. All right. Clerk Kalenga, the next resolution is the minutes from May 19th, 2020-117.
Resolved by the Council of the City of Ypsilanti that the minutes of May 19, 2020 be approved.
So move.
It's been moved and supported. Discussion on the minutes? Seeing none, Clerk Kalenga, please call the roll.
Councilmember Morgan.
Yes.
Councilmember Simmons.
Yes.
Mayor Bashert.
Yes.
Councilmember Wilcoxon. Councilmember Brown.
Yes.
Councilmember Somerville.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Richardson.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Who is the support, please?
Wilcoxon.
Thank you.
You supported that, didn't you, Steve?
Oh, yeah.
I think absolutely yes. I think this would.
Absolutely yes. It was the vote.
Okay. One of the two you outshine this. It's whatever.
All right, thank you very much. All right, next we have resolution number 2021-18 for appointments to boards and commission. Clerk Kalanga, will you read that in, please? Just read the names if you don't mind, rather than the full, all the details.
Resolved by the Council of the City of Ypsilanti that the following be appointed to the City of Ypsilanti boards and commissions as indicated below: Emily Drennan, Nancy Heine, Christian Cannon, Karan Gaines, Heidi Hugenitz, Jake Albers.
Thank you. Is there a motion to support? Mayor Pro Tem.
I'll wait till this motion is made. Okay.
Okay, is there a motion to support?
Has a motion been made? I'll make a motion.
Thank you.
I'll support.
Support. Okay, it's been moved and supported. Thank you. Discussion.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem, we're going to speak. I'm sorry. Okay. Councilor Morgan, did you have something?
Yes. Now I never really put too much say on it, but I did. I received the email. I'm sure we all received the email, and it was talking about absences on commissions. Now I don't know if it's based on twice a month, 2 years, what the ramifications or specifications are on absences. I don't know how comfortable I would feel for some of those names missing so many days to vouch for. I mean, some of those names that I heard, but a few names, I would like to get the story behind certain absences and how that ties into the mission and quorums and things of that nature. So I haven't really, it's an individual thing. I wouldn't just support every name on there, and I don't know what that entails, but that's my 2 cents.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem.
He has my same feelings about that. I think if we're going to vote, we need to vote on them individually. And I really would have liked to have known which commission they were assigned to. I don't have that in front of me. So I would like to know who was on what commission, and I'd like to vote individually because I think that there were some that had quite a number of absences that I can't support.
So there's so we need a motion to separate these out by name. Is somebody willing to make a motion to separate these out by name? Individually.
Well, I make a motion to, in the future, when we appoint board and commissions, that we do it on an individual basis and not group together. Is that sufficient?
Is there a second for that motion?
Councilmember Morgan, to do this one, you would need to move to divide the question.
I have to divide the question?
Correct.
Okay, so I make a move to divide in those terms, I make a move to divide the question.
Move to divide the question and handle each individual with a separate vote.
I make a move to divide the question and handle each commission appointment to a separate vote.
Is there support?
I'll support that.
Okay. It's been moved and supported. All right, so let's go down the line then.
Wait.
I'm sorry, we have to vote on that. Councilor Coxon, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I mean, as this was, I agree with Councilor Morgan in that finding out the reasons for these absences is critical to making this vote. So I'm not even willing to do this right now. I mean, saying that up front. It's like
there should be a vote on the motion to divide the question.
Correct.
Yes.
We're dividing the question.
Councilmember Simmons.
Yes.
Mayor Bashir.
Yes.
Councilmember Wilcoxon.
Yes.
Councilmember Brown.
Yes.
Councilmember Somerville.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Richardson.
Yes.
Councilmember Morgan.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
I do believe, to your point, Councilor Morgan, that staff will have some information on the reason behind the absences for some, if not all, people. But every one of these people expired in May, and so they're off the commissions, and those commissions, and particularly 3 of them are on the Sustainability Commission, so that's a factor. Councilor Somerville, then Councilor Simmons.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would be comfortable voting on these if I can get some clarification from staff. I know I've already asked some questions from regarding one of the planning commissioners, and I think the response I got regarding Heidi is that her profession requires her to travel out of state for work.
Let's go on one at a time. Okay, we're talking about Emily Drennan first. If we divide this up, okay. So Emily Drennan, to your point, Mayor Pro Tem, Sustainability Commission, and how many absences did she have?
7.
Mm-hmm.
I think we out of order. I don't know. We can do.
I think that we're following the procedure. We voted to divide them. And now we're talking about each individual one, okay, for approval or denial. And
I have the information necessary to make the decisions now. I don't think we've had the background information. Like, although the question is divided, I think that's a personal thing. Some of those things we shouldn't be talking about out loud until we have, like, I don't think we should name names and absences before. I think that's private. I mean, at this point, we don't, I wouldn't vote on it.
Councilor Simmons, please. I think you're muted.
Yep, thanks. So I understand, right, there's several that there are questions about. I think that at least I know that there is one person on this list that had 0 absences. That was Jake Elber. So I guess I would propose perhaps, you know, if people aren't comfortable voting because they want more information or something about these other folks, at the very least, we probably could move on Jake Elbers today. Again, I don't know if Councilor Somerville had mentioned another person where she had gotten some information. But I guess I would say at the very least we could talk about that one. He's had 0 absences, so there's seems to be no issue with him. I'm aware that I think everyone else has had at least 1 absence, and I'm not sure what level of concern folks have with, you know, if it's everybody else or whatnot. But anyway, that's my 2 cents on that.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's like a handful that I'm not concerned because it's just like a few out of 2 years is like not a big deal. But then there's some that get over the numbers close to 10. Like that is kind of a lot to miss in a 2-year period, I think. So I don't think all of these, I'm trying to pull up the notes. So I think it might help if we get the numbers. So like out of the Sustainability Commission, Nancy and Christian had 3 and 4.
Right,
I'm not concerned.
We voted to divide them. Okay, so we really, per our vote, we really have to take them one at a time.
I have a question about that because we did vote to divide them, but I thought we were still, before that happened, we were still having a general discussion about the commission appointments. So I think that's still, like, am I mistaken there, Mr. Barr? I don't know. I guess, like, I know that we passed the motion at the end, right? Like, we can still have an open discussion and then at the end vote through all of them. Is that incorrect? You're muted.
You're muted, Mr. Barr.
You did vote to divide the question, so the next process would be to take them one at a time and vote on them individually, but council can discuss them as council decides. One thing you could do is vote on Mr. Elder, whoever it was, and send everything back for more information.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. Councilor Simmons. Oh, I'm sorry, Councilor Somerville, continue.
Sorry, I guess I'm trying to get some feedback from other folks on council. It seems like if we're just going to go through all of them, we could just go through them and then decide if we want to hold off until the next meeting to decide on individual appointments. But there's a handful that we could vote on tonight, I think.
Councilor Simmons, did you have your hand up previously? Councilor Morgan, I see your hand right now, so I'll call on you, and then Councilor Simmons, I thought I saw you wanting to speak.
Yeah, sorry, I was just going to suggest, right, what Mr. Barr has suggested, that maybe if there's a couple, we could always send the other ones back, but we could probably go through that each individually and say, we want more information on that person, send that one back, then hit the next person. That's just, again, my suggestion.
Thank you. Councilor Morgan?
I would support that also. I would third that. However, I just want to know, according to the charter, what the expectation or what the criteria is, so I have a standard to measure it up against. And that I don't know.
There's no standard.
Okay, then that's probably why it's probably be there's no you can't miss, but you know, I want no more. Willing.
Councilor Scott. Thank you.
I was under the impression that there was
Councilor Mayor.
who's talking?
You are Councilor Wilcox.
Okay, I thought there was a number of meetings that was actionable in terms of missing them, and that was within the individual commissions.
I think that's each individual commission creates its own attendance policy or not, right? I think that's what it is. Clerk Kalenga, is that correct?
Correct, yes. Attendance policy would be in the bylaws of each individual commission. If there is a violation of those bylaws, then the commission could pass a resolution recommending the removal. However, once their term expires, the commission has no authority to recommend the removal. They could pass a resolution recommending that they not be reappointed, but it's up to council to decide on who they would want to appoint to a certain board or commission.
Thank you. Councilor Brown?
Okay. So in listening to the conversation, I just think that there are some that we could probably go through. I have the numbers in front of me now, and either vote to get more information or move them forward. The question that I'm having is that once we do this group of names, is this going to be a practice for, because we haven't historically done this and looked at absences. So are we going to start looking at absences for every group of folks that are being reappointed to boards and commissions going forward? I don't mind seeing that information so that we can be making good decisions, but I just want to make sure that the action that we're taking is equitable, because this is the first time that we've done this since I've been on council.
Yeah, I think it should be, I would like to see it be something that we do with every reappointment, personally.
My opinion, I've been on council a year and a half. I missed today, and I still get questioned about it. The fact that people expect to see us because we have an obligation, I think it's whatever that is, and it has to be a minimum requirement. And whatever commission it is, people meeting that's cool. I just think we should know. And if there is an absence policy, maybe we should get those so I can measure it up against. I think absence should be a definite part of the quality of a position.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Mr. Barr had his hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Barr.
Yeah, in answer to the question about the standard, the city charter provides that for city council, if council misses 3 consecutive meetings in the course of a fiscal year, or 25% of the meetings, then they forfeit the office. But there's nothing in the charter, as the clerk indicated, for boards and commissions, but the 3 meetings would be a standard.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem, and then Councilor Simmons.
Yes, I do think that, I think this is the first time that I have seen us have a record of absences when renewing someone's appointment. And I think it's a good idea in that in looking at this, we can see some people have missed, I would say, excessive amounts of meetings, but there might be some others that have not. But I think that it's good and we need to know how we appoint people, but I think that we also have a responsibility to kind of follow up and see how they are working on the commission, rather than just continuing to reappoint somebody over and over again. Are they working? Are they attending? And if they're not, then we need somebody that's going to, be there and going to do the work. And I know that we, got rid of 2 or 3 people that were had excellent attendance and were good workers on commissions, and we got rid of them. because of their color. So I say, you know, I think that there's some here I certainly support Mr. Albers, and if there's 3 or 4 in a 2-year period, absence in a 2-year period, I say let's vote them through. But where there's 8, 7, 8, 10, maybe we need more information, or maybe we need to find out if they're still really interested in being on that commission.
So at this point, they've been off the commission for 1 month, all of them. So if we don't vote on them today, then they'll be off for another 2 weeks, which is probably going to impact about at least it's going to impact 2 of the commissions for sure.
For sure.
Yes, Councilor Morgan.
From between now and 2 weeks, if you think about the agendas of those commissions and meeting quorums, are there anything on those agendas that are so pressing that 2 weeks will keep them out of standing? Are we affecting quorums? Are we affecting decisions that's moving forward? Andrew?
Thank you, Councilor Morgan, for calling on the clerk for me.
I'm sorry, he had his hand. My bad. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, man.
The Sustainability Commission meets on Monday. However, if these members are not reappointed, they would not count towards quorum. However, it would be a very small commission at that point.
I'm gonna ask another question real quick. Is it true, it was a statement made a few weeks back that we haven't made quorum in one of these commissions since December?
Yes.
That is correct, yes.
Okay. So then that's when we should have done investigation of who we have actually sitting in those seats. But since we had that opportunity, I mean, I don't think 2 weeks and them not having a quorum would be a big deal. It's not urgent. So I think we can take the amicable time, the time necessary to look at or I agree. I support whatever council's will is. If I had to make a hard decision today to keep somebody on and off, but I think individual case by case basis is necessary, and I don't want to stop pressing business, stopping it from moving forward. But so I digress.
Councilor Simmons, then Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, so I think, I am a former member of the HRC and also the Zoning Board of Appeals, and usually there wasn't an issue, maybe once in a while with a person. Those commissions would generally try to address that and bring that to the attention of, the mayor. I think in the past, if there was an issue with attendance, I'm not interested in necessarily, looking at attendance records every time somebody comes up. But I think right now we have a known issue with several members where there's been some, serious issues with attendance. And I think that is worthwhile looking at. But like I said, at the very least today, I think there's a few people it looks like we could move forward with, come November when our charter amendment is voted on. I guess this will truly become everyone's concern. So I know I look forward to everyone really taking an active role in that as well. But, but here we are today. So, maybe we can move this along and figure out who we want to vote on and find out more information on and go from there, I guess.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes, and under the procedure we're operating on right now, I don't know if I can do this, but I would like to move that we vote on Mr. Albers, Mr. Cannon, and Ms. Hine. I move that we approve their reappointment.
Support.
If we did that, that's still okay. I'm sorry.
Clerk Kalenga.
Just procedural for information on procedure. Since these have all been divided, you would need to vote to table the ones that you don't wish to move forward with tonight and then approve the others.
I so move.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Councilor Wilcoxon.
Oh, I was just going to make that motion. But I think it's a good cutoff. I mean, anything over 5 years is questionable. I have a sense of what was going on with Emily Drennan, but nobody else does. So that is there. But I think 7, more than 5 absences in a couple of years is significant.
I think so too.
You want to make that?
Again, Mayor,
I've got a
if I
problem
may, since these were all separated individually, they will have to be handled individually. So those that you don't wish to move forward, you have to move to table. So depending on whom you like to vote on first, let's go with that. We can go just down the line.
I'm going to go top to bottom in
Okay.
order as in the resolution. Okay.
So then we will start with Emily Drennan. So
I'm sorry. I also have information about Emily Drennan, and I think that the cause for her absences was temporary. But we can ask her for, we can discuss after we vote on them what we want to do with the two that we table, if we choose to table them, okay? Or move them to a date certain. So Emily Drennan, for Sustainability Commission, she was up on May 1st, and I need a motion on the floor about her.
Move
Need a
to
motion
table.
to table her or approve her, one or the other.
Move to
her
table.
Move to a date certain, Mayor Pro Tem?
Next meeting.
Thank you. Okay, there's a motion for Emily Drennan to move to the next meeting.
Support.
Is there support? Okay, that would be Somerville. Thank you. And discussion. Clerk Kalanga, call the roll.
Mayor Bashir,
Yes.
Councilmember Wilcoxon,
Yes.
Councilmember Brown,
Yes.
Councilmember Somerville,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Richardson,
Yes.
Councilmember Morgan,
Yes.
Councilmember Simmons.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
Thank you. Nancy Heine. Is there a motion to
I
approve?
move to accept.
Okay, move to accept.
Second.
Moved and supported. Somerville got the second again. Discussion. Clerk Kalanga, call the roll.
Councilmember Wilcoxon,
Yes.
Councilmember Brown,
Yes.
Councilmember Somerville,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Richardson,
Yes.
Councilmember Morgan,
Yes.
Councilmember Simmons,
Yes.
Mayor Bashir.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Christian Cannon, up on May 1st, Sustainability Commission. Is there a motion?
Move to continue.
Support.
Okay, moved and supported. Is there discussion? Clerk Kalanga, call the roll, please.
Councilmember Brown,
Yes.
Councilmember Somerville,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Richardson,
Yes.
Councilmember Morgan,
Yes.
Councilmember Simmons,
Yes.
Mayor Bashir,
Yes.
Councilmember Wilcoxon.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Next is Karan Gaines, Human Relations Commission, up on May 1st. Is there a motion to move to a date certain or to approve?
Make a motion to table
To the next meeting, Councilor Morgan?
to the next meeting. Yes.
Okay, thank you. There's a motion to move this to the next meeting.
Support.
And moved and supported. Thank you. Discussion. Clerk Kalanga, call the roll.
Councilmember Somerville,
Yes.
Councilmember Brown,
Yes.
Councilmember Morgan,
Yes.
Councilmember Simmons,
Yes.
Mayor Bashir,
Yes.
Councilmember Wilcoxon,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Richardson.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. Next, we have Heidi Jugenitz, and she's on the Planning Commission, May 1st. She was expired, and is there a motion to move to a date certain or to approve?
Motion to move the table to the next meeting.
Thank you. It's moved.
Or
Is there a second?
Support.
It's been seconded by Councilor Coxon. Is there discussion on Heidi? Thank you. Clerk Kalanga, please call the roll.
Mayor Pro Tem Richardson,
Yes.
Councilmember Morgan,
Yes.
Councilmember Simmons,
Yes.
Mayor Bashir,
Yes.
Councilmember Wilcoxon,
yes.
Councilmember Brown,
Yes.
Councilmember Somerville.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. Jake Albers, Zoning Board of Appeals, May 1st.
I move to accept.
Thank you. Moved and supported. Is there discussion? Clerk Malenga, please call the roll.
Councilmember Morgan.
Yes.
Councilmember Simmons.
Yes.
Mayor Bashert.
Yes.
Councilmember Wilcoxon.
Yes.
Councilmember Brown.
Yes.
Councilmember Somerville.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Richardson.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Council Wilcoxon.
I'd like to address what we're going to do with these other folks. We've got 3 people that we need background issues on. You know, I'd be happy to talk to Emily, since I'm the liaison to that commission. Would somebody else be taking point on those other 2?
I could take point with Karan. I could reach out to Mr. Gaines and see what his take is on, even if he wants to be still on the commission. So,
Thank you.
And then actually, Joe, would you mind? Are you there? I think Joe, I've already spoken about the Planning Commission a little bit with Joe. So I don't know, Joe, would you be able to touch base with Heidi?
Of course, and we'll definitely do that and get a written statement.
Cool, thank you.
Hey, Joe.
Hey.
No, it's a
So
song.
question to the rest of council is, do we want a written statement from the other 2 people?
Can you repeat that?
The question is, Joe had mentioned a written statement, and I was, you know, lots of times when people are appointed to these commissions, they show up during public comment to introduce themselves if they're the first time, or they show up, you know, when they're being reappointed. Obviously, I don't see who's on this meeting for some reason, but you know, a written statement or attendance at the next meeting, is that something that people want?
I mean, I think one or the other, a written statement or maybe show up to the next meeting. I'm assuming that we could get a report back from everybody who's chosen to seek information.
There has to be, like, I mean, like, I don't know if somebody can help me, maybe Andrew, maybe Attorney Barr. When I leave this seat in 4 years, well, in a couple of years, is there going to be an assessment tool? I get to fill out a card to say how was my counseling? Like that there's a way to determine what I did and how I did it. The same thing like the commissions, where there's like a little blurb about their time. It has to be something that gives us some insight to what they did and how, you know, how impactful or less impactful they were on their time. Because we just don't want to be hiring, no offense, duds. We want people to be active. So it has to be a way for me to fill out a questionnaire on my exit strategy. So what is that like with commissions? There's no way of saying this person was on here, got reappointed, they did good things, a highlight list. It's just you take them as they come.
There is not currently a tool to assess someone's productivity in a border commission. It's not something that at least the clerk department is going to take on. We're more of we're there to keep record. I can create a policy for council to approve. In
my opinion, those records say something, right? You keep enough records, it's a pattern emerging. It'll tell us.
The minutes are the records. So if council wishes to see what a commissioner or board member is doing, they can review the minutes of those meetings.
Thank you.
I think reviewing folks at the end of their appointment, maybe we could get to put together some sort of resolution to approve that says that we'll assess their attendance over the last.
Just their behavior, their attendance, because we don't mean they represent the city. At least a 10 questionnaire. Hey, how did you like it? What did you think? Your biggest obstacle, your biggest success? Would you do it again? Would you, you know, just simple things that you would think are, you know, procedures and organizational leadership. I would want to know how I'm doing. How am I doing? Like, that's sure.
I don't
know.
You're doing great, Anthony.
I mean, I'm a fan of evaluation, assessment, but I also think it's very interesting that we're talking about this when none of us are necessarily, I mean, your evaluation if you get reelected or not if you run for reelection, but there's no evaluation for us. And so if we're going to talk about that, let's talk about us, because I'm sure there are many people who have lots to say about how the job that we're doing beyond just the election booth. You know,
But you know, many people can get reelected and do nothing.
that's my point. That's my point. So, and if that's the case, we should probably take a look at ourselves and how we evaluate, how we have the evaluate us too.
Touche. I would start with us first. I would help create the tool.
As well. Yeah.
That's a great insight. Thank you, Councilwoman Brown.
Further discussion? Okay, seeing none, Clerk Halenga, our next agenda item is resolution number 119 for levying and assessing unpaid bills. Can you read that one into the record, please?
Resolved by the Council of the City of Ypsilanti that the city treasurer be authorized to levy and assess on the July 2020 tax roll the attached listing of unpaid bills totaling $88,470.
Thank you. Is there a motion to accept?
Oh, support.
And it's been supported. Thank you. Councilor Brown got that one. Discussion question. This is Reagan Basabika's agenda item, I do believe.
Good evening, Council.
Evening, yeah.
So just to note here, this will be added to our July tax bills. Some of our special assessments will be moved to our December bills because of due to the city closures. We will be moving them to the December bills.
Reagan.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, Councilor Somerville had her hand up first.
Yeah, this is more of a question for Mr. Barr, I think. Is there a way for us to extend this, the deadline for this at all, past July?
Council, City Clerk, do you have feedback on this?
You could, these assessments could be placed on the winter tax roll. The reason why they appear this resolution is before you is it was one of the clerk department's goals to have all outstanding AHV liens assessed to the July tax roll, but it is a decision of council if they'd like to wait until the winter tax bill. It would still appear, it would still be, we would still receive those funds in fiscal year 2021. So it's completely up to council. If they wish to hold off until winter, that is completely up to council.
Yes, I
agree.
agree.
Oh, sorry.
John, you had a statement, Mr. Barr?
I wasn't done.
I know,
Sorry.
but he was continuing on that same topic, I think, that same question.
Right, I agree with Andrew on that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Go on, Councilor Somerville.
Yeah, I guess I kind of am interested in seeing if we could push this off, only because we're in the middle of a pandemic, and I think some folks need a little more time, and having a little bit more time can keep some of them out of some potentially, more difficult situations. I don't know how anyone else feels, but that was my first reaction when I saw this.
Thank you. Councilor Mayor Pro Tem. You're muted, Mayor Pro Tem. You're muted.
Sorry, thank you. Which taxes are the most, are the highest? I know summer's higher than winter. Mm-hmm. So I moved to put it on winter also.
Can I ask Mr. Basabika what that will do to our cash flow?
Mayor, we do collect our most of our taxes in somewhere in September for the summer tax bills. Mm-hmm. So we're pretty liquid during this time.
So let's say 50% of our people decided to push it to their winter tax rolls. We're making this voluntary, correct? No, it'd be mandatory. Okay. So without that income in September, what will our cash flow be like?
So what we're referring to here about only is the special assessment, and this is around 88,000. am I answering your question, or are you referring to our total summer taxes?
It's $88,000.
$88,000. That's
Okay.
correct.
Okay, so we're able to absorb that. All right.
Yeah,
then.
it's not that much.
Okay.
Mayor, still collect these funds in fiscal year 2021. It would just not be, it would not be until winter. So it would not affect there would not be an impact on that fiscal year.
Okay, thank you. Further question, Council Morgan.
Reagan, are there any tax breaks, COVID-19 federal funds that the city apply, that the city is we're how can I say that we're eligible for, that we can pass off to our constituents?
We just had that DOJ grant, and then we are also applying to that FEMA grant.
Okay. And this is a question I don't know. I know EMU usually pays us money annually for fire. Not EMU. For using their fire, we just get $400,000. Does that money come in now that the COVID has stopped and there's nothing going on at Easter?
We do get around 480,000, and then usually on this fiscal year, our 1920, there was an appropriation of an additional 400,000, but we are not sure yet if that's if we are going to receive that this coming 2021.
Okay, so that doesn't show up anywhere.
Not yet.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Further discussion on the motion. Is there a motion on the floor, right? It's been moved and seconded to push this off to the winter tax rolls. Is there further discussion on that motion?
Was it seconded? I
Yeah.
seconded that motion.
Councilor Coxon, I think, had the second. Okay, I apologize, Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem moved. I didn't have a second on the motion to delay until winter.
Yeah,
No,
so I think we
summer-
were just talking and Lois said that she would support it. I never made a motion.
Lois, I'm sorry, Mayor Pro Tem moved to delay until winter.
Okay, it's been moved and supported. Thank you. Any further discussion on that proposal? Thank you. Clerk Halenga, please call the roll.
Okay, to delay this special assessment until the winter tax roll, Councilmember Wilcoxon,
Yes.
Councilmember Brown,
Yes.
Councilmember Somerville,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Richardson,
Yes.
Councilmember Morgan,
Yes.
Councilmember Simmons,
Yes.
Mayor Bashir.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. Our next resolution is 2020-120, approving the tax levy ordinance with budget adjustments. So Reagan, would you like to give us any information on this before we move into discussion?
Yes, Mayor, this will be our portion for our tax levy. So this will be for our operating, sanitation, fire and police pension millages.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Further questions or discussion among council?
How is this resolution affected by the last one we just made?
There's no effect to the last resolution, because what usually happens is we send out the bill for our property taxes, and then in addition to that, we send out the special assessment. So it's separate bills, but then we just send it out all together. If it were approved, then it will just be in one bill, and then will be due by September 14.
Okay.
Thank you. Further questions or discussion on the tax levy resolution? Clerk Halenga.
Mayor, we have to put the resolution on the table.
I'm sorry, please. Thank you.
Resolved by the Council of the City of Ypsilanti that the proposed ordinance entitled 2020-2021 Tax Levy Ordinance be approved on second reading.
I move.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Discussion? Questions, comments? Seeing none, Clerk Kalanga, please call the roll.
Councilmember Brown,
Yes.
Councilmember Somerville,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Richardson,
Yes.
Councilmember Morgan,
Yes.
Councilmember Simmons,
Yes.
Mayor Bashert,
Yes.
Councilmember Wilcoxen.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you very much. Next, we have resolution number 2020-121, an ordinance to amend budget appropriations. This is the second reading by department. Clerk Kalanga, can you put that on the table for us, please?
Yes.
Resolved by the Council of the City of Ypsilanti that an ordinance entitled An Ordinance to Amend Budget Appropriation by Department and Major Organizational Unit for the fiscal year 2019-2020 be approved on second reading.
So moved.
Moved. Is there a second of support?
Support.
Johnson supports. Thank you. Discussion. Questions, comments, suggestions? Seeing none, Clerk Kalanga, please call the roll.
Councilmember Somerville,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Richardson,
Yes.
Councilmember Morgan,
Yes.
Councilmember Simmons,
Yes.
Mayor Bashert,
Yes.
Councilmember Wilcoxen,
Yes.
Councilmember Brown.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. Clerk Kalanga, how's your voice holding out?
Doing well, Mayor.
Thank you. Next, we have resolution number 122. Adopt budget appropriations by department and major organizational unit for 2021 and 21-22. Can you please put that on the table for us?
Resolved by the Council of the City of Ypsilanti that an ordinance entitled An Ordinance to Adopt Budget Appropriations by Department and Major Organizational Unit for the fiscal years 2020, 2021, and 2021, 2022 be approved on second reading.
Support.
Is there a motion?
Or move.
Move.
I
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Sir, was there support?
Support.
Thank you, Councilman Brown. All right, discussion, questions, comments?
Yes.
I'm sorry, Council Morgan.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you to the staff for making a lot of hard decisions, and I want to thank council for going over those rigorously to get what's best for the citizens. I know it's not going to be easy for us to look ahead in these uncertain times, but I think we got the smarts. I think we got the heart to do it. So I'm proud of the staff. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, further comments?
Just thank you to staff for going back and looking at this. Thank you.
Yes. Thanks, staff.
Clerk Kalanga, can you please call the roll?
Mayor Pro Tem Richardson,
Yes.
Councilmember Morgan,
Yes.
Councilmember Simmons,
Yes.
Mayor Bashert,
Yes.
Councilmember Wilcoxen,
Yes.
Councilmember Brown,
Yes.
Councilmember Somerville,
Sorry, are we still on 123?
Yes.
Okay, yes.
motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. Okay, now we're on resolution 123, capital improvements plan. With proposed changes. Clerk Kalanga, can you please put that on the floor?
Resolved by the Council of the City of Ypsilanti, whereas the Charter of the City of Ypsilanti requires that council adopt a capital improvements program on an annual basis, and whereas the Planning Enabling Act requires that council adopt a capital improvements program on an annual basis, and whereas the City of Ypsilanti is pursuing renewal of its redevelopment ready certification from the Michigan Economic Development Corporation, which likewise requires that a capital improvements plan be adopted. And now therefore be it resolved that the Ypsilanti City Council hereby adopt the capital improvement plan for fiscal year 2020, 2021 through fiscal year 2026, 2027.
I move.
It's been moved and supported. Discuss.
Yeah,
Councilor Somerville.
I just want to clarify, I lost connection. So I asked at the last resolution, but we were on, apparently we weren't on 123. I just wanted to clarify for folks. So, I mean, we already voted on it, but I lost connection, so I wasn't sure where we were at.
Gotcha. Thank you. Further discussion on the capital improvements plan.
Again, I just wanted to say a hearty thank you to the city manager and her staff and the city council. Thank you.
Clerk Kalenga, please call the roll.
Councilmember Morgan,
Yes.
Councilmember Simmons,
Yes.
Mayor Bashir,
Yes.
Councilmember Wilcoxon,
Yes.
Councilmember Brown,
Yes.
Councilmember Somerville,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Richardson.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you very much. Next, we have playground equipment for Candy Cane Park. Something a little bit more interesting than numbers, folks. Clerk Kalenga, will you please read this into the record?
Resolved by the Council of the City of Ypsilanti, whereas the city released a request for proposals to replace outdated play equipment at Candy Cane Park in February of this year with an option to relocate it, and whereas 5 complete bids were received in a timely fashion, and whereas the lowest well-qualified bid was submitted by Play Environments, option 2 for $74,994, and now therefore be it resolved that the City Council award the bid submitted by Play Environments for option 2 with funds to be allocated from the existing Parks Capital Fund, budget year 1920, account 414-7-7510-970-00.
I so move.
It's been moved. Is there support?
Support.
Thank you. Simmons had her hand up first, so I'm going to give the support to her, but it's all good. Pretty excited by this. I couldn't see the bids though on the iPad, for whatever it's worth. It wouldn't. The link didn't work there, so I don't know if it worked on the other sites, but I did see them. Further questions or comments about this? I'm excited to see us move forward. Councilor Morgan.
I'm ambivalent about this because seeing all the taped up playgrounds around right now, spending $75,000, I know it's already accounted for. I don't know if that's the best use of it, because I don't think it's going to be the best benefit. Because if we put it in right now at Candy Cane Park, there's no guarantee of when it's going to be actually utilized, sterilized, and things of that nature. I think it can be held off a little longer. I do appreciate the need to have more functional new equipment in parks. But again, at this time, I just don't have I can't put a mark on how well we can utilize the stuff now. But it may be just short term. But again, this is uncertain time. So I'll follow the will of council on this.
Thank you. Mr. Akers, I think you have a question related to that. Question about the park equipment reopening.
Yes. So we are going to be reopening the parks June 8th. We're going to be putting up some signage to promote social distancing and make sure that people are aware of some of the risks and the different things that we're asking them to do in the parks. But based on the governor's recent executive order, we are going to be reopening the park starting June 8th. I'm going to have a crew out on Friday, which will hopefully we'll be able to remove all the caution tape and basketball, the covers for the basketball nets and the gate to the skate park, but we should be ready to rock and roll for June 8th.
Does that help you, Mr. Morgan, Councilor Morgan?
In between, well, we're still in the pandemic, and I do understand that the executive order may be changing, and I do understand we're lifting it, and I do understand the signage. However, the problem still exists regardless of what paper is up. But I'm just saying, I just think spending money on a playground when we can divert different people to different playgrounds right now. But so either way, I'll follow.
Thank you. Further questions or discussion from council? Councilor Wilcoxon.
Yeah, I think the move is kind of interesting. This park is, this sits up on top of a hill where there's, it's a nice wooded lot, things like that. It's separated from the ball fields and things like that. Moving it down is supposedly to make it more accessible, which is a goal that we've had for all of our parks and play structures. And I think the cost is less for having it closer to the road. The thing I think is neat about the way that it's situated now is that the playground is removed from the street. So the two things are in competition, because then you don't have access from the street, and it's a much more secure place for little people. It is, and it is very close to an entrance on the other side of the park, but due to the budgetary constraints, I can understand why it's being moved down closer to the Roosevelt. Again, this money has already been accounted for, but yeah, it seems like a chunk of change at this point.
Further discussion or questions? Now, I was confused a little bit on this. No, it was a different resolution. Never mind. Okay. Joe, did you want to discuss anything about this play equipment? Tell us anything that we might be missing in the resolution?
So actually, this was me, Bonnie, not Joe.
Bonnie.
It's okay. I get mistaken for Joe all the time. We have the exact same haircut now. So I just want to clarify something about the moving it downhill. There are a few different reasons we were looking at the moving, and it is actually to get it better visibility also from the street. So up at the top of the hill, it's a very secluded location. You have better visibility at the street, which invites more people to play. It also makes it feel a little less secluded, but in a bad way, I suppose is a way to say it. It's also it's closer to the street in its proposed location, but it is still a fair distance back from the street. So it's not a bad location, we think, as staff.
Can I ask a question, Bonnie, related to the position? Is this related to sight lines, which we often talk about with parks for safety and for visibility for parents with children, that kind of thing? Is that what this new position does? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Coxon, you had your hand up.
I guess I wasn't exactly sure where it was being moved. Is this being moved between the tennis courts and Roosevelt?
So yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I thought I put a little map in the thing, but apparently I did not. It's in the.
I kind of assume that's about the only place there would be to put it.
Yeah. Yeah, you should be able to see it in the Parks and Recreation packet if nowhere else. It was included in the RFP.
Can you tell us some information about the current play equipment there? I'm not as familiar with that park.
It's a lot simpler than what's being proposed. It's also sustained some damage over the years, and it's a discontinued set, so we can't replace the pieces like for like. And because of how playgrounds are regulated, we can't just fabricate a new piece in order to take the place of some of the damaged pieces.
Thank you, Bonnie. Councilor Morgan?
Hey, Bonnie, out of all of the parks in Ypsilanti, I think it's 9 parks, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong. It's not my job to keep track, but I think it's 9. And out of them, how high is Candy Cane as far as accessibility and playability? How high is that on the list? Do a lot of people randomly go there in the neighborhood it's in, or is it as sparse?
Not a lot of people know about it, and not a lot of people again, part of this reason is that you can drive by a Candy Cane Park on Roosevelt and not know there's a play structure. You can drive by Candy Cane Park on the north side and not know that there's a park there. So by bringing this down to this more visible location, we hope to invite more users.
Is it kind of like a private park? Would you consider that? Would people in that neighborhood, if it's tucked away, is that like their own private little, not just happenstance to be tucked away that people benefit from it? Is this gonna invite new people into the community that park usually in, which is probably a good thing, but I'm just asking.
Well, it's a public park either way, so.
Councilor Simmons has feedback on that, and then Councilor Coxon.
Yeah, actually, I think it's a really welcoming park, and Little League happens there too, so it's pretty accessible for parking, and so yeah, I think it's inviting. This is a great thing. I think that'll just increase folks, hopefully, using it, seeing it, but people in the neighborhood know about it, and hopefully, more folks will come and utilize it as well.
Councilor Coxon.
I was just going to say that in the summer, this does have a number of barbecue stands in it, and it's pretty well used in the summer, and lots of people from outside of the neighborhood come to that.
Cool.
The park is also historic. I think that this is the first girl to be ever admitted into Little League played at Candy Cane Park.
Exactly. There's supposed to be a memorial.
Sacred ground here now.
It's just, it's just a little Ypsilanti history. Representative Peterson is talking about trying to put up a memorial for that particular moment in history at Candy Cane at some point, but it kind of got set aside during COVID, but it's out there. Further discussion on the play equipment proposal. Seeing none, Clerk Kalenga, please call the roll.
Councilmember Simmons,
Yes.
Mayor Bashir,
Yes.
Councilmember Wilcoxon,
Is this the Ward 2 sweep? Yes.
Councilmember Brown,
Yes.
Councilmember Somerville,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Richardson,
Yes.
Councilmember Morgan,
I'm going to have to vote no.
motion carries with 6 yes and 1 no.
Thank you very much. Pretty exciting. Next, we have resolution number 2020-125. Mr. Akers, I believe this is yours. Clerk Kalenga, can you put it on the floor, or the table rather, and then Ron, you can tell us what's going on.
Resolved by the Council of the City of Ypsilanti, whereas the City of Ypsilanti was awarded a SAW grant from the state of Michigan in an amount of $376,288, and whereas 81,000 of those grant funds were set aside to purchase asset management software, and whereas city staff has evaluated 3 different options for digital asset management and has recommended Elements XS due to its simplicity of use and comprehensive scope. Now therefore be it resolved that the City of Ypsilanti authorizes the Department of Public Service Director to enter into a sales agreement with Elements XS for the purchase of asset management software for an amount of $65,500 with any changes to be approved by the city manager.
So move.
It's been moved. Is there support?
Support.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Akers, the floor is yours.
Thank you. The City of Ypsilanti, as everybody knows, was awarded a SAW grant for $376,000 in order to evaluate our city's stormwater system and complete a stormwater asset management plan. As part of the SAW grant submittal, the city allocated approximately 81 grand for asset management, training, and hardware purchases. As a result of this, we evaluated 3 options for software and have recommended the purchase of Elements XS for several reasons. These include the versatility of the software and the ease of the use for our field staff. While the grant covers the purchase of the software for stormwater purchases, the Elements XS software actually can be used for any assets that the city owns, such as roads, parks, facilities, any other asset we own. In addition to this, the demonstration also showed us how easy it was to use for our field staff who are not used to digitally inputting information remotely. The initial cost of this package is $65,500, which will be covered by the SAW grant. However, there is a $20,500 fee annually for this software, which will be an expenditure which is pulled from our Act 51 accounts, which are funds 202 and 203. I'd asked Rachel Jackson from OHM to give a brief presentation on these software programs and what they do and their benefits to an organization. She is here at the meeting as well.
One
Before we get to that, I wanted to explain what our current situation is at DPS with regards to keeping data, and I think how this will improve it. We are very much a paper-based department, so items and maintenance schedules in our department are kept track of in people's minds and in paper files. And as many of you know, we've moved on in society, and it's not the most efficient way of organizing ourselves. Technologies like these are becoming a norm for public service operations, not only because it keeps the data in a central repository, but it also helps managers make better decisions by tracking issues, costs, and maintenance schedules. And ultimately, it saves an organization money because we learn where to invest our funds in assets and when to do it. So if this is properly implemented, it could be the beginning to a better documenting the city's infrastructure and our workflows in a way that is replicable and easy to evaluate. So with that, of course, I'll be happy to answer questions, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn our present over to Ms. Jackson, and she can give an overview.
Thank you.
Council, good to see you all.
Welcome.
I think Ron hit the main points. This is something that OHM has been working with communities for the last 4 years, because SAW grants have been, I think they were available starting in like 2014, 2015. They're kind of wrapping up the SAW grants. The city's got the 4th year of grant funding. And these 4 years, OHM has dozens of communities across the state of Michigan have been given this grant. We've helped them vet softwares, look and see what would fit them. And really, almost every client that we're working with for the asset management plans, this is the way that they're going because it's so efficient. They have a grant that helps pay for it. So far, our clients are very happy with it. YCUA, we actually help them purchase Lucity, which is a different type of asset management software. But you know, it's basically across the board. It just helps you with efficiency. It's easy to use. You can go and find data fast, and you can spit out reports. So really, Ron, when there's a question from council, Ron can go and find that information faster for you. He doesn't have to go ask, you know, a couple different people what happened. The City of Oak Park, I know that they really like that when they have a work order, they know that it's finished in the computer, what time it was finished. They can add notes. It doesn't have to, you don't have to have the conversation necessarily. Everybody can go into the software and see what happened. You can load photos. You can basically jot down anything you need. And then in 10 years from now, somebody can go back and say, oh, that happened then. And you don't have to worry about retiring. It's easier for switching over. The knowledge is all in one spot. So I think that's one of the biggest reasons that our clients really like it is you can manage better and you know where your assets are. The data is amazing, which I know a lot of people love that part about it too. So.
Ron, I can hear the report requests coming right now. All right, thank you for that information. Yeah. Question or discussion from council. Councilor Coxon.
Excuse me. You know, I read through this a couple times, and I'm still not clear what the $20,000 a year subscription fee gets us. Could you address that briefly?
Rachel, can you answer that question, please?
Yeah, so you're still purchasing like the license for the software. So the initial upfront cost is integrating all of your assets, making sure it fits the way you want, it looks the way you want it to look, because a lot of this is, you can tailor it to how you need it. You're just purchasing what they have to offer and then they work with you. So that's why it's such a big upfront cost. But the 20 grand a year is, as they're still providing the software availability to you. So there's that. And then let me also pull up the invoice. So they have the $15,000 for the subscription of the software, but then also the extra $5,500 is for them to host it on their cloud. And also if you have updates that you want to do with them, like say you want a revision, that's also, you go to them, hey, we have this new facility. can you please add this facility to the software? So kind of, they're still working with you a little bit back and forth because things are ever changing. So
basically,
one of the,
ahead,
sorry to interrupt. You know,
That's
one
all
of
right,
the one of the reasons in some of these software, these AMS softwares, CMMS softwares, part of the reason why they value it so high is they look at the amount of money that you save by having the information available to you that they provide. I know, you know, of the three options we looked at, Elements was the more priciest, most pricey of the three. But I do know that there's other software programs that are more expensive that we specifically did not look at, that are a little bit more intensive than I think what our operation needs. Like CityWorks is a good example. But no, the way they do, and Rachel, correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is the way that they price the software is really based on, you know, the savings that you're supposed to realize by having better data management. So those are what the subscription fees are for. But primarily when we were looking at the different types of software, the thing that really stood out about this package compared to the others was just ease of use. You know, one of the challenges that we're going to have, and every organization has when you try to get something like this off the ground, is getting buy-in and getting the individual people to use it. Because, you know, we're going to be sending our work crews out with an iPad to, you know, use touch screen and indicate where they're filling potholes, what they're doing, and, you know, having the ability to make it as easy as possible for the end user was one of our goals, because the concern is if it's hard to use, it's not going to get used, or maybe they'll skip it, and we wanted to make sure that we had something that we could implement.
Further questions, Councilor Coxon? There's other hands.
No, thank you. That it kind of sums it up. I know there's always the after. It sounds like they're giving lots of support on an annual basis in terms of hosting it and maintaining the software, and so we don't have to have an in-house expert to be able to do that. So that makes sense.
Mayor Pro Tem, you're muted. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. So this is $20,000 a year forever, for as long as we have this program?
Yes, for as long as we have this program. And Rachel, correct me if I'm wrong, but you know, as we move forward into the future, there could be price increases on an annual subscription basis, but yes, that will be the annual fee.
Okay, thank you.
Questions or discussion?
Councilor Morgan.
Yes, thank you, Ron. A couple questions. Well, I do think, you know, first I need to know, is this something they're actually literally building? Will it be on location? Because with the $20,000 annual, that's cool. I think that that's like a setup fee, and we keep. But is there no time to get anonymity from this system, like where all the money we're spending on training, that someone within the DPW will learn this system and get kind of away from having to pay them? When you think about us continuing to know what the technology does, and is this something that's being built? And what about the institutional knowledge that's going to be in this data, and how safe is it? And in that $20,000, are we talking about backup? Are we talking about all of our information being safe? How can it be hacked? And will your people have equal access to it? And which would increase the chances of the technology being, you know, kind of compromised. So what's your take on those things?
Well, so from a training perspective, all of our staff is going to have to get trained on how to use it. You know, from our office manager and our office admin to our field staff, you know, everybody's going to have to be able to use it in order to implement it effectively. One of the advantages of having a system like this, as opposed to having a separate system, is kind of how we're doing it right now, is that everything is centralized. So we're not relying on, you know, people's memories. We're not relying on things that aren't recorded to be able to identify where some of these assets are and when we last maintained them. One of the most powerful tools, and you know, we'll use stormwater as an example. You know, we have requirements through some of our licenses with the state that we clean manholes and storm sewers every 3 years. And so one of the advantages with software programs, we'll be able to track and for each manhole, each storm sewer section, you know, when we last maintained it, you know, who was working on it, how long they spent, you know, approximately how much money it cost. I mean, you know, having all this data at our hands is critical, you know, as we move forward, and that's where some of the costs come with efficiency. With the data security, a lot of the information that's in there is public record. I know we try not to share storm sewer data, mainly just because we don't want people, you know, finding where the inlets and outlets are in the Huron River and exploring, because there's a lot of dangers in there. But from a data security standpoint, you know, I believe, and Rachel, correct me if I'm wrong, that with the you know, we'll have different staff members who have access to the program. They'll have different permission levels as far as what they can add and what they can do. So, you know, I don't think it'll be possible for, you know, one staff member to go rogue and hijack it.
I just want to, let me just, I just want to throw this in here and I'll let you finish. Last question kind of mixed in there. In 12 years, we're going to probably spend $250,000 on this. And you're saying that there's ways and mechanisms to show how the city can offset $250,000 based on this new technology.
So the idea with the cost savings is that through routine maintenance and through being able to identify, you know, issues and fix issues before they become larger issues, there is a long-term cost savings to the city. Because a lot of these infrastructure challenges, you know, if we don't fix them now and wait 10 years to fix them, then they become, you know, 10 times more expensive, or, you know, so the idea is that if we're doing everything correctly and keeping track of everything over that period of time, we're going to save that much money and some of our assets.
Okay. All right. I would love to see those numbers neck and neck, but that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Council Wilcoxon.
So, you know, I realize how they price these out, and like if you look at the actual cost of their programming time and things like that, then this is not where they're going. But then the question is like if the city of Grand Rapids bought this, would they be paying $20,000 a year as well, or would they be paying more because they would assume that they were going to be saving more?
That I don't know the answer to. I'm not sure exactly how their pricing scheme works. Rachel, do you?
Right. You know, this yearly fee, from what I've seen, it's pretty consistent. It also, some of these companies will limit how many users you can have. So I've seen them where you only have 5 logins and you pay for those 5 logins every year. One benefit of Elements is that they have unlimited users. So I haven't seen a comparison with Elements with another client, but with some others, you're gonna see a varied fee every year because of the amount of users, because they base it off of that. So I guess I can't really compare apples to apples there.
Go ahead, Councilor Wilcoxon.
Well, Ron, will you have administrative rights to this and have training on a different level than other folks?
More than likely, we're going to be working with their team because there's different modules and different things that go with it. And from what I understand, they're going to build something that's unique to the city. It's going to be working within their program, but what they're going to create is going to be something that's primarily geared towards exactly what our operation is. One of the advantages with the annual licensing fee is that if we have a change in our operations, or if there's some adjustment that needs to be made, my understanding is we can work with them and make that adjustment, and that's all covered under the annual fee. So that support is there.
So the expandability of this, there are other assets that you can track in this. Will that annual cost be fixed no matter what you bring into that? So a lot of other modules, will that still be $20,000?
That's how I understand it, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Rachel, I'm just, wait, I'm sorry, Steve. I'm sorry, Mayor.
Councilman Coxon?
I'm done, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Council Morgan, you had another comment?
This last thing, Rachel, I'm just interested in for $20,000, like how many hours are they working on? And I think we really want to get the DPW out to Stone Age. So I'm just saying, but how many hours is that of $20,000 of work? Like, is that 100 hours, 20 hours? How many hours is that, Rachel? I know it's kind of hard to predict, but based on what you've seen, what would you say?
I don't think it's necessarily just based on the hours. It's also them providing the license and providing the cloud space. So I guess I don't know exactly how many.
The cloud space is $5,500, correct?
Right.
So we know that price, right? So I'm saying of the other $1,500, what are we talking about? We're talking about hours. We're talking about time. We're talking about, because we got a whole space which is which is a monthly, yearly. So we get that. So I'm saying, the 15,000, are they coming in actually doing work on the actual system?
Well, I guess I don't know how it breaks down to hours, but I know that they're a partner with you. So Ron will be able to lean on them for their assistance when things come up. I guess I don't know exactly the hours because I've never had to break it down that way.
Like we hire you guys, and so certain hours when you have a big chunk of money, a certain hours is billable. So we know how much time you're spending on things that we. Right. So when we say $20,000, we have $5,500 allocated. I don't want to make a big stink. I just want to know if they're going to come in, say hello, sign a paper, go out, and just get 20 racks. That's a lot of money.
Right. Well, I mean, we can definitely ask them to provide that information. I mean,
that'd be nice to find out what they're actually doing. That'd be
we can get a further breakdown for sure.
Thank you so much.
May I ask a quick question, Rachel? Rachel, with the sales agreement, I mean, if we can choose to terminate this at any time as well, if we get to the point where we, are no, if we have a change of direction or find something new or no longer can afford it, we have the ability to terminate that, correct?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Thank you, Ron. Thank you, Rachel.
Yeah, no problem.
So these kind of cloud-based services are pretty common actually in a lot of different industries. And this might be the first one that's come forward in the city, but these are becoming more and more popular. And what you do is you're paying for the expertise of the company that will be doing updates while we own the software. This is the way that it should work in a best case. I don't know about this company. I'm trusting the research that staff did. But these annual fees are pretty standard, and if you take out the, we're talking like $1,700, $1,600 a month and it's not just more work, it's higher quality work, it's work that we can count on as being done more reliably, it's protection against loss of anecdotal information or historic knowledge. When a longtime employee retires, will retain more of the knowledge that they have. There's all kinds of benefits to adding technology to the system here. So I myself am pretty comfortable with the fee structure. Those are in line with what I know from my own industry. So there it is. Any other further questions or comments for Ron or Rachel? Okay.
I saw Mr. Wilcoxon's hand up before.
Mr. Wilcoxon, do you have a further question?
No, I think you pretty much covered it. This is a very standard kind of arrangement for software. I'm going through the same process at work. It's a Microsoft out of the box, but there's lots of modifications that are being made, and we'll be paying consultants to maintain that and change it over time. So that makes sense.
Further questions? Discussion? Seeing none, Kalenga, please call the roll.
Mayor Bashir.
Yes.
Councilmember Wilcoxon.
Yes.
Councilmember Brown.
Yes.
Councilmember Somerville.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Richardson.
Yes.
Councilmember Morgan.
Yes.
Councilmember Simmons.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. Ron, I had one quick question about the proposal that you presented. This is not related to anything, but in the summary you wrote in 2013, we submitted the grant, and in the resolution later on it says 2018. So is that 2013 or 2018? Just curious.
Well, so we applied in 2013, and so the SAW grant was awarded. There were like 5 years of funding that were awarded, and so our year came out in 2018, and so that's we've been working on it since.
Wow, that's a long time waiting. That really is. All right, thank you. Next, we have the street closure policy. Clerk Kalenga, can you put this on the table for us, please?
Resolved by the Council of the City of Ypsilanti, whereas the COVID-19 crisis has hit the City of Ypsilanti and our businesses extremely hard, and whereas public health guidance is indicating that eating on outdoor patios at restaurants is the safest way to dine out, and whereas the city seeks to assist in the recovery of our small businesses when they stay at home, stay safe order is lifted. And whereas it is expected that restaurants' capacity is expected to be reduced to at least 50% when they are allowed to open. And now therefore be it resolved that the Ypsilanti City Council approves a special event permit closing East Cross Street, stretching from Rice Street to River Street, North Washington Street from Pearl to Michigan Avenue, as well as South Washington Street between Michigan Avenue and the South Huron parking lot. In addition to the street closures, the DDA is requesting on-street parking on West Michigan and West Cross to be closed to accommodate added outdoor seating and potential curbside pickup spaces. The closures would remain in effect during overnight hours and last until September 8th, 2020 at a cost not to exceed $2,500.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve? Support. Who said support? I apologize.
Sorry,
Okay, thank you, Andy. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilor Brown. All right, Joe, the floor is yours. You're muted.
Yes, I am. I have a little presentation, if you guys don't mind, that I'm going to share my screen just to kind of go through some things. We've been listening to a lot of the business owners in the community, and I think we've actually amended the plan slightly to actually help meet everyone's needs as best we can. So 1 second, let me get this. Okay, so can everyone see my screen?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So just to give everyone a little bit of a background, obviously we know that our business community has been hurting in these times of COVID. The vast majority of our businesses have been shut down. In early April, the DDA did a survey of all of our businesses. We had roughly 45 out of the 100 storefronts actually submit responses. And 90% of our businesses, luckily, indicated that they would reopen a short time after the governor's stay-at-home, stay-safe order it was lifted. Now, we all know that effective June 8th, the governor's stay-at-home, stay-safe order will be lifted, as well as a lot of restrictions have been lifted already. But some of these things happened a couple days ago. As far as our restaurants, which are one of the key tenants of our downtown, as well as our retail, they'll be facing a 50% reduction of an indoor capacity. And many of the comments during the survey, and Christopher can speak a little bit more about that after I get done, had a desire to utilize city parking lots, public sidewalks, and streets to actually increase our footprint. Because as we all know, or not we all know, but a lot of people probably do know that the CDC is recommending if you have to go outside your home, outdoors is the place to be. Also, you'll see on this presentation a couple of the new signages that you'll be seeing in City Hall and around the city. It's kind of a local branding campaign that we're working on to try to make sure everyone knows that masks are required and things like that. And please stay home if you are sick. A lot of the challenges that we're having are, we have a dense urban form, right? Our downtown was built 100 to 150 years ago. And so it's really not something we can change. Most of our old buildings are are hard to retrofit based on that. When you look at our sidewalks, in some places they're 5 feet wide, some places they're 3 feet wide, some places they're 12 feet wide. So really it's hard for some of our businesses to actually get outdoor seating. And we have limited outdoor seating. We also have narrow aisles, small kitchens, and cash flow difficulties, obviously, if we're going to be at the 50% capacity. We also, in the restaurant business, as in retail, we have high volume and low margin. So really, we want to try to find a way to actually help our restaurants and businesses survive throughout this. Some of the benefits that we've researched would be, improved accessibility, proper social distancing, 6 feet. Obviously, added square footage will help some of our businesses expand. And actually, our new plan, which is slightly different than what was actually presented, we've taken a lot of input, and we'll get to that in a second, but really to help all of our businesses expand their footprint. Eating outdoors is safer experience for customers and employees. If the employee's outside, there's more dispersion that happens through if people do cough. It is recommended by the CDC, and we're going to get to that in the next chart. But adding outdoor seating on major streets and parking areas can also help slow down traffic, or traffic calming, as we've heard, because as you kind of make the road a little bit narrower, people actually tend to slow down. It's a proven policy. Additionally, downtown's been pretty dead. Depot Town's been pretty dead because we haven't been allowed to leave our homes. Getting people back out of the street will show that Ypsilanti is thriving. And so really working to show we're here and we're still fighting is important. We've done a lot of research on what the CDC's best practices and recommendations are. And this came directly from the CDC, and then also a Washington Post article where public health experts were questioned, which is, if you do want to go out to eat outdoor. It's way safer than eating indoors. The virus reduced based on ventilation. Additionally, dozens of cities throughout the U.S., Europe, and Michigan, Grand Rapids, Ann Arbor, and Birmingham in particular, and Traverse City, all are actually doing this. And if you look at the CDC's recommended guidelines, obviously the lowest risk is delivery, takeout, and curbside. But a moderate risk is takeout, delivery, takeout, and curbside pickup. But on-site dining outside with 6 foot distancing is the second tier of risk. Obviously, indoor is even more risky, and outdoor is not advising by the 6 feet distance rules by the CDC. So if the city council does choose to allow this, the city and the DDA would begin permitting restaurants through the outdoor patio program that we currently have. We would also allow expanded retail on sidewalks, and if a street closure is permitted, on that as well. The DDA is also offered to prioritize all of their downtown fundings to help our businesses construct the temporary barriers, as you can see right here. I believe that is Ferndale. I actually don't know the city that I said, but really bringing an actual wood structure, so when you're actually taking up a parking space, you do feel safe to eat there, and the cars know that they can't park there anymore. We also plan to work with the Michigan Liquor Control Commission, MDOT, and our state representatives' offices, state representative and state senator's office, to really help our businesses understand how to expand their services outdoors with patios. Walking between restaurants and patios with open containers will not be permitted at all. There is some discussion about entertainment districts, which is not even allowed by state law yet, and it's not something we're looking at as part of this plan whatsoever. With the adoption of the parking strategy, the DDA understands the need to collect revenues, and by turning off some parking spaces that used to collect revenue, we understand that the DDA understands that there will be a cost to that, and that's why they have allocated the $2,500 to cover the approximate 24 spaces that we've kind of identified in this. Obviously, we're not going to allow a business owner, from a block away to actually take over the space in front of you, but there could potentially be some communal spaces for curbside pickup. So here's the maps that we kind of came up with. And really listening to the West Cross Business District, there is a potential that we could shut down a portion of College Place if they so desire, and some parking spaces to make sure that it's not just the restaurants that serve alcohol, but also the restaurants that do not serve alcohol, such as Tower Inn, Vegorama, and Stuffed. We really wanted to make sure that they weren't left out. These are all hypothetical maps. They say potential all over because an actual business owner would have to request them. We also wanted to make sure that there was access to the parking lots and the alleys, so we wouldn't shut anything down. In downtown, we've really taken to heart what the owners of 209 Pearl have done, and also looked at Encuentro, Red Rock, and Walkman do, to kind of see where are there spaces that we could actually help them to do it. And we have indicated that there are spaces in the North Adams lot, as well as, if allowed, allow for Red Rock to actually utilize part of South Washington if they choose. Once again, there's no requirement to a business to do this, but as you'll see, and when I actually explain it a little bit more than one business would have to actually agree to the street closure before we would actually continue with it. This would be Depot Town. We wanted to make sure there was access to our parking lots, as well as the private parking lots for the businesses. And so the street closures wouldn't be everywhere, but we really would work with DPS to make sure signage is possible if allowed by City Council. So if approved and support the concept, we can begin working through the process of all business owners to identify what we would need to ensure all businesses would be allowed to participate in some form. We do not want to have vacant streets with nothing on them, so multiple businesses would need to participate in on the block for a street closure. If there's not enough interest on a specific street, it would not be allowed. Parking space would be allowed in front of your business if you choose. Any space utilized would require that the businesses maintain the center. So our city does look well maintained, and there's a bunch of debris filling up on some of these fenced off areas. One of the key reasons why we've really tried to look at street closures instead of just parking lot closures is we have 4 restaurants that have no parking spaces in front of them. And so that's where, if you really look on North Washington, that is key to actually the success of some of these restaurants, such as Beezy's Go Ice Cream, Bobcat Bonnie's, and Tap Room. So that's kind of what we have. I know there's probably questions, and I'm here to answer them.
Thank you, Councilor Somerville. And can I have my whole screen back, please, Joe?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Sorry, bear with me. I have a lot of notes. So I guess I'll start by like area. Looking at the map that Joe just brought up for Depot Town, I actually have some concerns about the gap between the building that I live in and the building where Sidetrack is at, because I actually think cars will start using that street to speed through to get to that parking lot. And I already see cars speed through that street when I'm out on my patio. I don't think there's a reason to have that gap. I get the intention maybe, but it kind of would just make sense to keep that closed off and just allow people from River to get into that parking space next to the parking lot next to Aubrey's. So I'd like to make a motion right now to amend that part of the plan if we need to.
Actually, so the plan is flexible enough to where we put that. Yeah, so allowing for the street closure, we would actually look at council's wishes and make sure that is done. We just thought we didn't want to cut off the people who live in your building from access to the parking lot. But if council thinks that's the way to go, that was more of just an idea to help with traffic flow. But I understand your concern. I
think it would make more sense for us to just use photo. I think it could cause more issues with pedestrian safety than anything else.
Okay.
So I guess that's one piece. And then I'm glad to see that the update was made to start at the clock rather than before. And then in terms of working with some of the other businesses that don't have a lot of space for expanded outside seating, such as the West Cross and on the other side of downtown Red Rock and Tap Room and Dolores maybe. I know that we've been in a lot of conversations about that. I just want, I guess just for like general purposes of the conversation, that like the overall goal here is to try to expand, if they would like, as much as possible, with the parameters that we could work with MDOT and the Liquor Control Commission. But I also want to point out a big piece of this, which I think in part should have been entwined with the budget discussion, because I think some businesses, I do think that the fee associated with the space is going to hurt some people. Because nobody knew that the governor was gonna open everything up on June 8th. So I don't know how others feel, but I personally, if the city can waive those fees, I would actually really like to see that, because not everybody's gonna have the resources to just go forward with this in terms of just overall cash flow that they've been experiencing with just doing carry out over the last 2 months. So I personally would like us to not implement fees associated with any of this. So like if we could waive those, I know that they have to go through the permit process, but I would really like to see us actually waive the fees for everyone, especially the businesses that normally don't have patio seating, because it's not something that they're usually thinking about in general, because they don't have to go through this every single year, but like other businesses do. So just a thought. I don't know if other council members have opinions on that, but that's kind of my main, the Ninja Street and Depot Town, and then just making sure, because I do think that there is a significant effort on staff and other council members to make this equitable, but I do think that certain businesses who have struggled, some of them, Ollie has been closed this entire time. Are they going to be able to pay a fee to expand their seating? I mean, they're obviously going to have to go through the state licensing process, but I think where we have control over reducing fees, we should. I don't know what others think, but that's just what I have. So.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem.
A couple of things. One, in your presentation, Joe, you said that parking from the meters, they only produce $1.20 a day.
So that was the number that, sorry.
No, is that all that actually comes in through the meters, is $1.20 per meter a day?
Well, the majority of these spaces don't have meters. And so we took an estimate of all of the meters that the city currently collected, and that the number that we've used for all of the estimates for all of the parking projections were $1.20 per day. And so that's how we came to that number.
Okay. How is this going to affect traffic? It was hard for me to really understand, and even looking at it. And right now, my server won't bring up the diagram, so I can't really look at it. But the South Washington, where are you talking about? From Michigan to where?
From Michigan to the South Huron parking lot. So there would still be access in and out of that parking lot. But that would be the place that we would do it. The reason why we chose the streets that we did is because they are routinely shut down. So it's something that is relatively common. South Washington is one of the ones that isn't shut down quite as much as North Washington, but North Washington is shut down pretty frequently. And then in East Cross is shut down at least once a week throughout the entire summer. So people are used to the detours around them. The one that we did add at the end was College Place. We would have to sign that adequately if the two businesses on the end of that block chose to use that. But for just as as a side, there's always an issue when you shut down a road, but we want to make sure our businesses all succeed. So that's kind of where we've looked at it a little bit.
Also, we had someone on from the I didn't catch his name or didn't hold on to his name, from the Worst Bar.
Yes.
And he talked about businesses that he had that would not benefit because of their locations. What are we doing for those people?
So Mayor, do you mind if I pull up my screen real quick again?
Please go ahead.
Okay, because it is very important, because we've actually, and listening to their concerns at the Worst Bar, and then also in West Cross, what we've done is added a closure of one lane along College Place if they chose to. And then we also have the parking spaces in front of the businesses that could be allowed. In addition, Mr. Kraniak does own 209 Pearl. And so in listening to some of the concerns that they had, we've also allocated a few spaces behind the restaurant that the city has in order to actually allow for added capacity. So we've really tried to look at how we can get more people outside, because the more people we get outside, the safer it is for public health. And so we want to make sure everyone is equitable. You know, as far as Red Rock goes, there would be space if they did choose to actually potentially, and working with our state leaders, to actually have them a larger patio on South Washington as well. If they chose, once again, this isn't a forced thing. We really want to actually try to make this equitable for everyone. Location does prove to be a challenge in some instances, because we can't really at this point, we can't shut down Michigan Ave, Pearl Street, or West Cross. But what we can do is try to actually find added places for them to move more tables outside.
Okay, so would you put that back up there, please?
Yeah. Do you want downtown or West Cross?
Either one. This is West Cross.
This is downtown.
Okay. This is downtown. So you're talking about a space for Red Rock, and they're on Michigan Ave, a space for them.
They're right here.
Pardon?
They are right here.
And that's Michigan. They're on Michigan Ave, right?
They're on Michigan Ave, yes, but there is an alley right here, and we would want to work with all of our business owners to see if they could utilize
So
that.
they would have to actually come around the corner to serve their people?
Or behind. But there's also the parking spaces in front that we would offer to them as well. So right now, if you look at tap room, there's actually, this is tap room space right here. I can't really highlight it at the moment. Tap room has no parking spaces to expand into, and that's why we're actually going into the street.
Yeah, also Lois, this might help. Tap room already has outside seating.
I know they do. I know they do on the sidewalk.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know that. But still, I'm talking about Red Rock right now.
Yeah.
You know, they're in the middle of the block. I could see, okay, if we close up the parking in front, but for them to have to go and their customers to have to go around the side, you know, that's a lot.
It might not be ideal.
Go to West Cross.
Yep.
Please. Yes. Okay, so now you're talking about the worst bar is along in here, right?
Worst bar is right where my mouse is, if you can see it.
Okay, so
yes, there's this bit working with Tower Inn.
Okay, so what street is the Green Street on?
The Green Street, this is College Place.
That's College Place, okay. Yeah. Okay, what's on the corner there?
On the corner, Tower Inn.
Tower Inn.
Okay, so, and worst bar is over in the middle. So where you have the brown stripe, yep. That's where the parking in front is that going to be allow the traffic to move freely on West Cross?
Yes. So there's the space where the parking is, and then there's also the street closure. And so that's how we've tried to really talk about the equity. So we understand that not every place can have the exact same amount because of the geography and the actual physical build out. But when you go to some of the other restaurants, when there's no sidewalk in front of it, the parking spaces are the only places to allow for
it. Okay, I do agree. Someone did get mentioned, and I got several emails that dropped in today. I don't know when they were sent, but discussing this. But I do believe that we would have done ourselves a service to have had a combined meeting with all of the people, all the restaurants that would be affected by this. So, thank you.
Thank you. Before I call on you again, Councilor Somerville, let me see who else has comments from council. Can you give me the screen again, Joe?
Yep.
Thank you. Council, questions or discussion? Councilor Wilcoxon.
Mayor Pro Tem hit a lot of things that, and Councilor Somerville hit a lot of the things that I was looking at, and I went down and looked at the worst part today and looked at that. You know, these two businesses that are in the middle of the street, it's going to be very complicated for them to do this and to have anything on the street, either in College Place or on Washington.
Yep.
And getting out there is going to be an interesting problem. So, you know, down on Depot Town, you know, that's a lot of space. That's a huge amount of space for the restaurants that are there to expand out into. And so, you know, to address the equity question here on how they utilize that space, is there a formula based on the square footage of the current customer seating area in terms of how much space will be relegated outside? Because in some of these cases, if they're expanding 100% and somebody else is only getting you know a 20% increase in their square footage, then yeah, Sean's and I'm sorry, I forgot his name, Jesse's complaints are totally valid in that, you know, if we're getting way more. So does this plan take into account and say, you know, the goal here is to give people 35% more square footage, and because as it looks, some people are going to get way more than other people, and that's going to be a problem.
So to answer your question, Councilman Wilcoxon, the plan is always going to be challenging based on the physical geography. One thing we don't want is if we shut down the streets for us to have empty streets. So if we're going to do this, we want to make sure we can fill up the streets as much as we can. And so equity is a concern, 100%. Our goal, and really what we tried to do with the slightly revised plan that I presented to you tonight, was really try to address some of those equity issues. Understanding that I can't move a business, right? I can't physically move it. There are some streets that at this point we can't shut down. Now, working with MDOT, there's potential that we might be able to in some cases, but right now, you know, we were given literally 1 week by the governor to when we were told businesses could reopen to when they can reopen. And so we've been trying to figure out a way to actually get this ball rolling. There are a lot of things that we could do, but our goal is to actually work with each individual business owner to see what their needs are and try to meet every single one of them. If lobbying some of our state representatives is part of it, that's really what we're going to do, because we want to make sure they all succeed. Ypsilanti is a sum of all of our businesses and residents, not just one.
I understand that, but at the same time, we are capable of limiting ourselves so that there's not, you know, going ahead and giving the people who get the biggest amount of space whatever they want, and then giving other people whatever they want, and seeing that that's not an equitable situation, and then lobbying for more space for those people, as opposed to just going by the lowest common denominator in terms of equity. I mean, you know, it's just like, let me preface this with it, that I think going out to eat is a really bad idea. Biology has not changed one iota since this all started. We still have a pandemic. We still have a virus that's infecting people. And, you know, I just don't think this is a reasonable thing to be doing. You know, but I understand that these businesses are hurting and people are going to want to do this. And it's like, I won't be frequenting these, I'll tell you that. Because I think it's just a bad public health policy. I'm done.
Councilor Morgan, then Councilor Simmons.
Thank you, Mayor. I echo a lot of what Council Member Wilcoxon said. So this is my 60-second spiel. I don't think we at the whim of an executive order, like just because, okay, my battery getting low, but just because they say we have to open on the 8th. I mean, I know we can take more discretion than that at our own pace, but I do. And then you got people talking about, because when you talk about even the gentleman who owns the Worst Bar, he owns a few different properties. We're talking about ownership and losing ownership. We're talking about business. That's what we're talking about here. And if we're really being honest, we're thinking about if we sign this is the lesser of two evils, in my opinion, meaning that, of course, we're saying it's not equitable. That means literally I'm choosing favoritism. And so when I think about the 6 businesses that we're discussing, they just kind of too close to the DDA that gives it benefit to me. Because it seems like a lot of the members of some of the members of the DDA and some of the business owners, it kind of overlaps. I'm not comfortable with that. Secondly, when I'm thinking about an integral part of our we're saying that restaurants, which is a luxury, are more important than other businesses. That's what we're saying. Whether it's the barbershops, whether it's the churches, we're saying that these restaurants that are opening or have this space, that their livelihood is more important than everyone else's. That's what I interpret this as saying. And I don't want to do that. I understand, like Councilmember Wilcoxon said, this is still a pandemic. And I know eating is important, but the 6 businesses that we're talking about, if we have to do better resolution, it has to be a better one. I think that it's necessary to have a rotating system, a lottery system, where everyone, we're talking about equity, well, it's not equitable. If it's not equitable, it's not equitable. That means it's not fair, and that's what we're supporting. And so I think there's a better way to do this, and I think it's blatant favoritism, and I don't think that that's not what we're attempting to do, but I'm saying, and like, what's the rush? If we just took a little bit longer to find out the better way, still got, what's today? We still got about a week or so before the Governor Whitmer executive order is lifted or whatnot, but we don't have to rush into this. And I'm just kind of skeptical of the businesses that have seem like they get better consideration than others historically here. And so I don't know. I won't support this because it is showing my favoritism. Thank you.
Councilor Simmons.
Yeah, I mean, I have some concerns as well. I mean, I want to help the businesses also, but I think Steve really said it probably best for how I'm feeling about some of this, where, you know, if maybe are we looking at percentages of what makes fair for dining areas or whatnot, but I have concerns about, you know, do we end up driving our business to one area because, you know, because of their location just serves them better for this type of situation. So I appreciate, Joe, that you were looking at creative solutions to try to satisfy or look to solutions, I guess, for the other areas. And so I want to make sure that, right, we keep doing those kinds of things. I don't know that just because we can't help everyone doesn't mean we help.
You're muffled, Councilor Simmons, for some reason. Thank you. You are. Now you're better.
Okay, sorry. Anyway, I think just because we can't help everyone, I mean, we're never going to be able to maybe do everything 100%, you know, equally. But again, I think as long as we're proceeding mindfully on this, but you know, still, I do have some concerns.
Can I make a quick comment? And I'm sorry, Mayor. I wanted to just kind of respond to Councilmember Morgan for a second, because what the DDA is doing is far more than just this one thing for the business district. So I know Mayor Pro Tem had a question, but I don't know if after Mayor Pro Tem, if Christopher could kind of speak on some of the really large scale things that we are doing to help all of our businesses in the district.
Pro Tem? Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes. And I thought about this from the first time it was brought up. One of the complaints that we always get is a need for parking. We don't have enough parking. We don't have enough parking. By using the parking that's in front of the buildings, or businesses taking their parking lots and using them for seating, where are people going to park? What's going to happen to parking?
Joe?
So our concern with parking right now during COVID is that we will have reduced capacity in all of our businesses and restaurants. And so the need for parking this summer based on the pandemic will be lighter than normal. And so our goal is to try to help our businesses succeed and at the cost of maybe some parking, but based on the fact that every place will have 50% capacity, there will not be quite the demand on parking.
Okay.
And then, Mayor, do you mind if Christopher talks about some of the things that the DDA is doing for our business community? Because there is a lot of things to help with the pandemic.
Yes, and then Councilor Somerville has some questions too.
Yeah, thank you, Joe. Good evening, Council. I just wanted to update you because I think this plan is part of a broader strategy we're really looking at between the building facade and rehab grants, helping to build out those patios safely. That's a major initiative. I think there's $30,000 in West Cross, $30,000 downtown for that. And we just submitted a grant on Friday for $50,000 through the MEDC match on Main. And so there are 19 businesses that were selected as part of that grant application. We're working on branded signage throughout the district to help people ensure proper social distancing. And I think this is a key kind of cog in the strategies that we're using to address the COVID crisis. That's kind of a synopsis of it. I don't want to take up much of your time. You want to continue the discussion?
Just to add, we're also working with all of our businesses to help create the COVID readiness plans that the governor's requiring of all of our businesses opening. And Councilmember Morgan, I understand your concern about us playing favoritism for DDA board members. I will say that only one DDA board member actually would even be able to open a restaurant up, because we only have one restaurant owner on our DDA board. And so the rest would actually benefit every other business in our district. So it's not just DDA board members that would benefit.
Thank you. Councilor Somerville, and then Councilor Wilcoxon.
Oh yeah, first question, regarding West Cross Street, if business owners chose to work with the city to expand their outdoor seating, and this might be a Bonnie question maybe, or Ron, we could lower the speed limit temporarily for the summer on West Cross, correct?
I don't believe so, but
No,
that would be a
we
wrong
couldn't.
question.
MDOT.
No, we wouldn't be able to.
We wouldn't be able to, but MDOT could?
The Michigan State Police technically could.
Gotcha. Okay. Interesting. Yeah, I mean, so I think that this is obviously a really difficult decision for all of us to make because we are in the middle of a pandemic. I think one thing that I want to point out, honestly, like, I'm a former server. I was a waitress in Depot Town for 5 years. And because the governor lifted the restrictions, these people really do need to be able to go back to work and survive, because they're not going to be able to continue collecting unemployment benefits. So there's a lot of things to consider. The economic impact that this could have on the people who have lost their jobs over the last few months, which I think is a big deal because there are also people who not just rent in our city, but own homes in our city. So I think that's important on the overall effects of COVID to consider. But also some of these spaces that, that are concerned with the inequity issue in terms of space. First of all, these tables do have to be at least 6 feet apart, which isn't going to be 100% increase for even some of the businesses in Depot Town. Like Tower Inn, they have a few, I think like 4 or 5 outside seating normally in a normal year. And then Worst Bar has 2 smaller tables and like a picnic table style like bench on the one side so you can fit more people around. But like, if we don't adopt this at all, and we just leave all of the businesses to fend for themselves, there are going to be businesses that survive this pandemic regardless of what we decide to do, because they are more equipped with outside seating already, whether or not we decide to help them push out more seating, and whether or not we decide to help other businesses expand to the extent possible, working with the Michigan Liquor Control and MDOT. So I think that's important because none of us know what's going to happen with any of our small businesses, but I have a pretty good idea what could happen if we don't help some of them expand their outside seating. And there are going to be people who are just ready to go with just the normal patios that they have. I mean, obviously they're going to have to significantly reduce the capacity, whether it's outside or inside, because the tables do need to be 6 feet apart. But, this is both a public health issue. It's an economic issue. I mean, I agree with what Steve said. I mean, we still are in the middle of a pandemic. And I don't think what we decide to do should be looked at as us pretending like COVID doesn't exist, because it absolutely does. But there are going to be people who go out, and there are going to be businesses who can survive this, whether or not we decide on this. So I think really for me, this decision is, do we want to try to help out those businesses that can't can't have any outside seating right now, because that's literally, in my opinion, what we're looking at. And are they going to be able to survive when a few other businesses have enough outside seating to maybe keep them afloat? And again, we don't know if people are actually going to choose to go out, and whether or not they're people who actually live in our community. People from other communities might come, and some businesses are going to be able to make it through this and others might not, if we don't help everyone expand seating. So yeah, some areas might have less expanded seating, but other places are going to have expanded seating regardless. So I really think the question comes down to that and public health. We do need to encourage people to sit outside, and how are they going to do that if some places have one table for someone to sit outside or no tables to sit outside?
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem?
I'm not opposed to doing what we can to help businesses and to help them if sitting outside is, and I do believe and agree with the sitting outside. But I just think, I'm concerned about us doing it equitably. You know, right now, that's where I'm at. That and equity and equality are not the same. So I think that I just like to see us, if we do this, I think we need to make sure that we're doing it equitably. I'm not opposed to it, but let's make sure everybody is helped.
I myself see this as one of a number of tools that the city is working to leverage for our business community. And so none of the tools individually are going to be equitable across the board. Some of them, each one of them is going to help one business more than others to some extent. And so this one happens to come to council, but the grant, the movie thing, some of the programs to attract, the signage, that's not necessarily council level decisions. So we're not talking about those, but each and every one of them is going to help some businesses better than others because of just the world. The world is just built unevenly, and and so that's how I'm viewing the street closure idea in the parking lot, just one of many things. And so if this one isn't 100% equitable, I get that, and it's very, very difficult to say that I feel okay about this, because I see the imbalance, I feel the imbalance, and I feel the fear of the restaurants that are not getting, the big stick, they're getting the small one. But that said, I don't know, we don't have a better proposal at this time. And this is temporary. This is to help them get a jump start when they open. So I'm kind of torn. Personally, I agree. We are still in a pandemic, as Steve said, and this is a public health issue. Being outside is much, much safer. I myself will be trying to do what I can to attract business to the restaurants and the businesses that open by going there and live streaming and being present and letting people know that they can visit our businesses in a safe manner with appropriate precautions. So that's what I wanted to say. Councilor Morgan, you had your hand up.
I was just going to say, in my opinion, I do believe perception is reality, and it just appears, since most of these businesses have been regulated to curbside service, it just appears that the businesses in question have already a leg up on the other ones. It just seems that way, like they're already seem to be having more business than than the other surrounding businesses, and so this is giving them a boost, which is cool because we need it. It just appears that it's again, like you say, the world created uneven, so I get it. I just want to, again, promote as much fairness as possible. So we can call the question.
Further questions? Councilor Coxon.
Yeah, I had a question about the cost of implementing this for each of these businesses. And Chris was talking about some of the other measures. But for each of these businesses, as we were talking, that some businesses have more of a sidewalk presence than others. It seems like those businesses will be able to just spread their stuff out, but the ones that don't have any now are going to have a capital outlay to get the furniture and all those things. So if the DDA is paying for the barriers, is that correct?
The DDA is offering their building rehab and facade grants in order to assist with businesses to take care of these needs.
So that includes the additional seating, furniture, and things like that as well?
Christopher?
I have a huge truck driving by. It includes the build up for cafes. So if that would be the barricade, that could be potentially some of those other furniture items, street furnishings. Yeah, we already did that with benches. If you want a trash can, we'll cost share with you on that. Those are programs we've had for years.
Thank you. Further questions or discussion? Seeing none, Clerk Kalenga. Oh, Mayor Pro Tem. Mhm.
I know Councilmember Wolf Coxon asked about the cost to the city, and you mentioned some barriers and stuff. Can you give us a ballpark figure in numbers of what it's going to cost us?
The city government?
Yes.
Nothing.
The
city will receive $2,500 to help offset the parking revenues lost based on the parking lots, but the city will be paying no revenue towards the build out of any of these things. That'll be a DDA funded item.
Okay.
Thank you. Further questions? Clerk Kalenga, call the roll.
Okay. Councilmember Wilcoxon.
Going to pass.
Councilmember Brown.
Yes.
Councilmember Somerville.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Richardson.
Pass.
Councilmember Morgan.
No.
Councilmember Simmons.
Yes.
Mayor Bashir.
It's difficult, but yes.
Councilmember Wilcoxon.
You're muted.
I'll be very curious to see how this gets played out. I have severe misgivings about this, but I will reluctantly say yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Richardson.
Yes.
Motion carries 6 yes, 1 no.
Thank you very much, everybody. These are difficult and unprecedented times. We're presented with situations that, like this, that we're figuring it out as we go. So thank you for your work on that. Clerk Kalenga, you've rested your voice for a little bit now. Ready for resolution number 2021-27?
Resolved by the Council of the City of Ypsilanti, whereas the state of Michigan adopted the Small Wireless Communications Facilities Deployment Act in late 2018, which required municipalities to allow small cell wireless facilities within public right-of-way. And whereas the City of Ypsilanti adopted an ordinance to regulate small cell wireless facilities within the constraints of this law, and whereas Wireless has submitted an application, and whereas city staff has reviewed the plans and application and has found that the plans are consistent with the requirements of city ordinances, now therefore be it resolved that the City of Ypsilanti approves small cell wireless application 2020-001, subject to review by the city attorney.
Is there a motion? Councilor Coxon?
Second.
And it's been seconded by Councilor Somerville. Thank you. We seem to be voting on these small cell wireless things a lot. All right, I'm just saying, how many times are they going to come to council? Ron, is this yours?
Yes. So actually, the previous actions that have been before council were the ordinance to get everything set up in place. These are actually the applications for the small cell wireless facilities, which are proposed to go in various locations throughout the city. So as council knows, the state adopted the Small Wireless Communication Facility Deployment Act in late 2018. The purpose of the act was to accelerate and encourage deployment of small wireless infrastructure within public rights-of-way. The law provided a framework for municipalities to review these facilities and provided specific guidelines that the municipalities needed to follow when conducting these reviews. In response to this, the city adopted and revised an ordinance which regulates the facilities and their support structures in order to meet the criteria of the state law and our local guidelines. The application before you, submitted by Verizon Wireless, they submitted several sites within the city, and each of these sites has been reviewed based on the criteria of that ordinance. The proposed locations are all within city-owned right-of-way, and based on that review and our obligations under the state statute, staff is recommending approval of these applications, subject to the approval of the application by the city attorney. One last item that I just wanted to bring up, this was a requirement of the ordinance, is that each application was limited to having 20 sites on them. So there are 2 separate applications, but with the first one having 20 and then the second one has there's technically 6, but we're only considering 3. The other 3 have to be reviewed by the Historic District Commission. But with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions council may have.
Thank you. Council, questions for Mr. Akers? Councilor Morgan.
So he said that each application is only limited to 20 sites per application, and we had 3 applications. One have 20, one has 6, but we're considering 3. What does the other have on it?
Well, so the second application has technically 6 sites. The next item on the agenda is a partial approval of that application. 3 of the sites are currently approvable. The other 3 sites, while they do meet the criteria, they have to go through the Historic District Commission first because they're located within the Historic District.
And this is state mandated, correct?
I'm sorry?
This is state mandated?
For the most part.
Yeah, Deployment Act sounds like a state mandated thing. And it's 23 of these potential 5G wireless cell towers going up in our 4.3 mile city, correct?
Yes. Yes. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Have we determined in all the small cell wireless that's been coming up continuously about the amount of radiation emissions, the amount of I know they're going to be in the right of way, so I don't know how far they're supposed to be from residential areas, but what kind of health precautions is this? Because that's a lot of power being dispersed around our city. What's your take on that, Brian?
Well, so some of them are actually located within residential areas in the city, and the state law and our ordinance does permit them. So the FDA actually reviews, and I don't, from what I had read on the FDA's website, they review cell tower and they look at radio frequency emissions. And they have specific guidelines and there's frequencies that the cell companies have to stay within. On the FDA's website, they say that the 5G network fits within that radio frequency range that's good for human health.
Of course.
So it's on the FDA's website. I can say some of the safety concerns that we have through the small cell, there is an area, if you look at the plan, there is an area where, the radio frequencies are elevated, but it's high in the air. And I think it's within 4 vertical feet of the antenna and within 15 linear feet. They all have breakers on them. So if somebody hits a pole and knocks it over, it trips the breaker, cuts power to the antenna. So that was, something that was a concern. DTE, because DTE owns the poles, they have the ability, if there is ever an issue, they can go and cut power. My major concern with reviewing these was that if somebody knocks down a pole, we have, residents and public safety personnel and individuals out there, but they reassured me that, that's within the acceptable limits. They also, for each individual site, have an engineer certify that it's within those acceptable limits as well. So those are the
Okay, great. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. No, I was going to say those are the reassurances that I was provided.
I appreciate that. What's the annual associated cost with this with these towers?
So there's a $130 permit fee that's required under state law, and I believe it's each unit's $20 a year. And
wait, it's $130 per unit?
yeah, so there's an application fee, and this application fee is all established in the state statute, but it's $130 a year, and then after they're installed, they have to pay an annual fee of like $20 a year to the
So
city.
Ron, he asked the cost. Is that income or cost that you just laid out there to the city?
No, that's income to the city.
Okay, thank you. So is there cost associated with it? That was his question, just to clarify.
Oh no, not for us. I mean, we're going to keep track of all the locations, so we're properly invoicing them and making sure that we're getting our revenue from the companies as per state law. But as far as cost to us, when they're installed, we'll go out and take a look and make sure that they're installed per the plans. But other than that.
This is my last question, Ron. I know, like, with some of these polls around here, like when we have Amber Alerts, how it connects all of our phones, and how sometimes they can use, the police have ways of intercepting signals. With the state having a mandate, would the state have access to all those towers and be able to extract information at will?
That I don't know the answer to. I know the public safety has some type of access through E911. I'm not familiar with the specifics of it.
Okay. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Further questions for Mr. Akers? Seeing none, Clerk Kalenga, can you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Brown.
Yes.
Councilmember Somerville.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Richardson.
Yes.
Councilmember Morgan.
Yes.
Councilmember Simmons.
Yes.
Mayor Bashir.
Yes.
Councilmember Wilcoxon.
Yes. Yeah.
Motion carries unanimously.
It's a new habit,
What are you passing, Steve?
Oh, I figured I was the last one. I thought it'd be, comical.
Nope. No two passing in a row per charter.
Abstinence is the way, Anthony.
Don't I know it?
Okay. Is that a Clerk Kalenga? Is that a pass?
I'm sorry?
Did that pass?
No.
Yes.
No, Councilmember Wilcoxon did say yes.
Okay, good.
Okay, and shall I move on to 2021-28?
Please, and this is, I'm assuming, a similar thing with just a slightly different list of towers.
That's correct.
Okay.
Resolved by the Council of the City of Ypsilanti, whereas the state of Michigan adopted the Small Wireless Communications Facilities Deployment Act in late 2018, which required municipalities to allow small cell wireless facilities within public right-of-way. And whereas the City of Ypsilanti adopted an ordinance to regulate small cell wireless facilities within the constraints of this law. And whereas Verizon Wireless has submitted an application. And whereas city staff has reviewed the plans and application and has found that the plans are consistent with the requirements of city ordinances. Now therefore be it resolved that the city of Ypsilanti partially approves small cell wireless application 2020-002 for the following locations: 1339 North Huron River Drive, 1212 North Huron River Drive, and 301 North Hamilton, subject to review by the city attorney.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
Motion. So move.
Thank you. Move. Is there a second? Support. Thank you. Thank you, Councilor Brown. All right. Discussion. Clerk Kalenga, call the roll.
Councilmember Somerville.
Yes.
Councilmember Brown.
Yes.
Councilmember Morgan.
Yes.
Councilmember Simmons.
Yes.
Mayor Bashir.
Yes.
Councilmember Wilcoxon.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Richardson.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. All right. Congratulations, folks. We are dangerously close to ending on time tonight. Next is council proposed business, and I'm going to start with Councilor Brown. And what business do you have for us today, Councilor Brown?
Can you actually come back to me?
Sure. Councilor Simmons, please. Anything for the? Nope. Anything today? Okay.
No, nothing.
Councilor Morgan, council proposed business.
Yeah, I just got a couple things real quick. I do want to echo what they were talking about on Dwight Street. I know that the late Councilmember Murdoch had made some arrangements to get some of those speed bumps set out on Dwight Street. And so I do support that. However, I don't know if that was indefinitely. I don't know if that was after 3 or 4 years and do another kind of survey to see if they're needed or not. But I do support, since we have them and since they're already there, I do support them being up and out if that's something that DPW can do. I want to say I did get another email about the trucks in RNL, and I tried to follow up. I thought it was kind of crazy that he put me off. Since the pandemic, I hadn't had a chance to reach back out. But I know I still get those texts, mainly from a few different sources, not many, but I guess it's any noise is noise we must attend to. Food gatherers, Tuesday, June 9th, they're going to be doing a food distribution from 1 to 2 p.m. I think that location will be in different parts throughout Ypsilanti. I'll make sure I send those emails. I think if we are not getting them, I'll make sure we know the specific ones. And yeah, I do know that we have to, I don't want to really talk about it here, but I know we have some decisions to make with some of the things that are, but I know there's certain complaints on the floor that we want to make sure we get. I know 60 days that we want to make sure we get attended to in time before they expire, because there are some serious allegations in those things. And that's what I want to say. Thank you so much. I conclude my time.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes. Thank you. Grass mowing at Park Ridge Park. I've been asked about that several times now, and it came up at our meeting on yesterday. The grass needs to be mowed, that's kind of essential. Also, I have a complaint from a resident at 9, the grass behind 960 Monroe. I did not witness it myself, but the neighbor that was making the complaint said that it is as tall as some decorative grass that we saw, and it was up above my waist. So, and this is just plain old grass, so I don't know exactly. But the request was that Mr. Jackson, please go out, take a look at it, and see if he can get it taken care of. That's at 960 Monroe, Park Ridge. And I heard Mr. Councilmember Morgan bring up the complaint process. And now that we are open, I know that the governor is opening up the state. I had spoken with Mr. Barr, and he had said that we could go beyond, but now that the state is open again, we will do that as quickly as possible. And it was one other thing that has really just kind of slipped my mind right now. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Wilcoxon.
I have 3 things, I think. There was a question about aid packages, the COVID aid packages that had come to Jennifer and I today, and Jennifer had emailed the city manager, and I was just wondering if there were more incidents of cases where people were not able to get those, and where we stood on the supply for those. So if that's in somebody's update, I'd love to hear that. There was a C-click on Collegewood that I investigated, while walking around. It appears that the house has been sold to someone in Ann Arbor, and people are complaining about the grass in front of it. And I'd like to find out who owns it and if anybody has contacted those folks. So I'm not sure who I talked to about that.
What's the address?
1445 Collegewood.
Okay.
I talked to the neighbors, and they said that the folks that lived there had moved out, and then the daughter that had lived there occupied the place, but then they sold that about 3 or 4 months ago. There's still stuff in there, but apparently the landlord is in Ann Arbor someplace. So I was going to mow it myself, but then I thought if it's a local landlord for Ann Arbor, they should be over there taking care of it. So
Okay, we'll check into that.
thanks. I've got a lot of complaints about speeding and throughout Normal Park, on Congress and Mansfield. And I have witnessed this, like people doing 70 miles an hour up Mansfield between Congress and Cross, and completely blowing through the stop sign at Y-High on Grant Street. I mean, that stop sign is probably less than 50% compliance with stopping at that. And lots of people don't even slow down. They just blow right through that. So a while ago, we had talked about having the portable signs, the radar signs put up there to slow that traffic down. This is also an issue despite the recent bump outs on Congress, people are blowing the light at or blowing the stop sign at Oakwood as well. I'd like to get some of those mobile signs out, 2 of them on Mansfield, because that's a very long stretch where people just wind it out. And then possibly, I think we've got 3 of them. If we get one of those on Congress as well, that'd be cool. I'd also like to explore about speed bumps, kind of like they did on South Washington, where they were putting them very close to the stop signs. We currently have a permanent sign by the pool entrance that doesn't seem to be affecting traffic farther down. And I don't even know if it's working. It's hit or miss with that one. But I'd like to get some traffic calming and do a traffic study on those streets, because there's a lot of complaints, and I've seen it. People doing insane speeds down there. So I'll follow up with, I guess Ron's got the signs. Is that correct?
That's public safety, I think.
Public safety.
Chief, did you?
That's right. That's Ron. Actually, it would go before the traffic review committee to set up a study to review the speed in that area. And I'll go to Bonnie. Actually, I'll go through Bonnie to set up something with the traffic review committee.
Okay.
And I believe the chief is on that committee as well. So.
Yeah, because these are 25-mile-an-hour speed limits, and one's in a school zone, and it's just kind of crazy.
Steve, he has Ron has been still rotating some of those portable signs around, the ones attached. So I mean, that's still happening. I've noticed those moving around a bit, but this issue on these other streets.
Mayor Pro Tem, you had your hand up.
Yes, I remembered
let's wait till the others do their business. Then I thought you were going to talk about what Councilor Coxon was.
Well, it had to do with that. Yeah.
Oh, it did.
It was about speed bumps. That was what my other issue was. When are the speed bumps going back up on Washington and other streets? And also, I've had several requests for speed bumps on Burton Court. It ends in a cul-de-sac, and people fly up and down there like crazy, and the street is full of little children.
So we are aware that we need to start getting them back installed. So Ron is aware of that, and he's starting to program that into his staff. We're a little short in DPS right now, but we are aware that Park Ridge needs them now. I did get an email from Zach Fossler because of the children playing, also on Washington, also on Dwight. So that's on our radar, and Ron's gonna start scheduling his guys. He is shorthanded.
Also on Ferris.
I can't hear you.
I'm gonna go back to Councilor Coxon.
Ferris Street. You still can't hear me?
I hear you now, yes.
Oh, okay.
Thank you. Councilor Cox, I'm going to go back to you again, if that's okay. Thank you for your
Oh,
patience.
no, I was done. That's fine.
Okay.
I'll follow up with the staff about that.
Councilor Somerville.
Yeah, I guess I just want to echo the speed bump pieces. I got an email from Bob about Dwight Street, Washington, Ferris, and Ainsworth. So just want to reiterate what everyone else has pretty much already said. I know that we're, short-staffed at DPS. I do want to thank Ron. Last week I sent him a picture and it was fixed the next day. So thank you, Ron. Other thing that I think might be worth talking about, I think that a lot's changed since the last council meeting, and I personally would like to see us not take down the flag and not put it back up anywhere, but I would like to see us remove the flag from the police department and actually display it in the window, so you could see it when you're driving past council chambers on Huron if possible. I don't know if that needs to be a resolution on the next meeting, but I think it's the right thing to do right now, given what we're hearing from the community, given the fact that so much that, not that it wasn't already happening, but lots of things have been elevated recently with police violence across the country. And I do really think that the flag would look nicer hanging from the window of council chambers at this moment in time. So I don't know if others share that sentiment, but we did vote on that last council meeting, and I personally think it would look better hanging from a window at City Hall. And that's all I have. I don't know if anyone wants to address that now, but.
I don't know. I think since we voted to get the flags down out of City Hall, I think that's where it should stay. I think someone should be gracious enough to let it hang on some business or somewhere else outside of City Hall. I thought the police department was good, but we heard about that earlier.
Councilor Simmons?
Well, I don't know, as a former police officer and as a lesbian, I mean, I think it's really symbolic to have it at the police department. There's a lot of LGBT folks who actually serve in the police department. So, I mean, I don't know, to me, it's a positive symbol. I understand others' concern and whatnot, but for some of us, it's also kind of a beacon of hope too.
Thank you. Further comments? Thank you. Councilor Somerville, what would you like to do?
Well, it doesn't sound like there's any support to relocate it in council chambers. So I just wanted to make a point to address that, since community members would like to see the flag up, but not necessarily in front of the police department. So.
Thank you. All right. Thank you very much. It's now.
I didn't get to speak.
Oh, I'm sorry, Councilor Brown. Wow. How did that happen? Oh, you passed. That's right.
Yeah, I said come back to me. So actually, one thing I wanted to talk about was the speed bumps, but Mayor Pro Tem and Councilmember Wilcoxon pretty much brought those up. The other thing that I just want to say, I want to go back to the start of our meeting with the original resolution that Mayor Pro Tem brought forward, talking about racism being a public health crisis. And I think what I really want to say tonight, and just thinking about that throughout the meeting and just the different things that have been happening throughout this week and for a long time, is just really to challenge our council and our staff to really get proximate to these issues. I think that we do a lot of performative things, and there are some of us who, those that are Black on this council and city staff that are experiencing things every day, where we have to show up in spaces and continue to work and present ourselves in a way that is productive while we're still enraged and hurting and in pain about what is happening to our community. I think that I have seen over this last week some really tone deaf choices around how to speak about what is happening across the country right now. And I would implore individuals to really think about what they're saying and when they say it, and when is an appropriate time to do so. And speaking of the flag, of raising of the flag, I actually support I know the week before when we had passed the resolution, definitely in favor of it, but I thought it was totally inappropriate really to have a Facebook event about raising the flag and not take that down after, Mr. Barr had said that it might be an issue if we had more than the 10 people from the executive order, but to continue on with an event that's kind of in jubilation or celebration of another community when one community is in pain, and to pretty much, I felt, ignore, but then try to integrate and compare the plights. I just was not a fan, and I felt offended by it. And so, not saying that I didn't want the flag to be raised, but it could have been raised at a different time. It didn't have to actually happen on that day. And I know that it was said by the mayor that council couldn't change that, and I don't think that that is true either. Council could have changed that, or it could have just not happened, even though the resolution had been passed. And so, as I reflect and I think about my role in the community as a young Black woman and trying to be a leader in the community and trying to myself continue to be proximate to issues that not only affect me, but all these other groups that I consider myself to be an ally to, I would really appreciate if my counterparts, my peers, my colleagues would do the same when thinking about the community that I so incredibly love and am proud to be a part of. And I know that there may not have even been any ill intention, but perception and the way that it is interpreted and felt is something that is also very real. And so we should be more mindful of the things that we're doing before we do them and while we're doing them. And so that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask for an update on the PPE distribution, the program? Where are we at? What's been done? How many have been distributed? Where have they been distributed? Can we just get a quick summary?
Christopher, could you jump in and give her the data that we have so far?
Yeah, happy to do so. There were comments earlier and an email thread about folks who we communicated with about non-resident status. 3 of those submitted incomplete applications. We followed up with them, found out they were city residents, got their address, and we set up pickup times, or we will for next week with those folks. There were quite a few people who submitted applications and they live in other communities, Superior Township, Ypsi Township. That was super common. We see it with the recycling cards too. And it's tough to tell those folks, hey, contact your local government, but we really only have enough resources, I think, for the city residents, and that's the way it was passed. We can fill all of the care packages received to date from city residents. We have delivered 321 packages between Chittister and Town Center. The reason we haven't begun the pickups quite yet is because we just got another shipment of face masks on Friday afternoon. And so we've been working out the kinks in the assembly. So it's not such a disaster in council chambers. We're getting a lot better at it. 450 adult face masks are on hand. 400 child face masks are on hand. And we'll start setting up the pickups or deliveries, like I said, starting Monday, because we're going to be able to fill those orders this week with what we have.
Okay. It's been about 5 weeks since we passed it. Is that correct? And we're getting about, at this point, we're about, so 450 and 365. So we're about right around 800 or so been distributed or about to be distributed. Is that correct?
We hope to have all of the adult face masks out by next week. And then I think we're going to get another shipment next week. So it's a rolling basis that we put these together and get them out the door to meet the needs of the applications that are coming in that are valid.
Okay, and then are they going, I'm sorry, I've still got the floor, Councilor Brown, just for a second. Okay. Are these going to, so they've been to the, the 2 apartment buildings, and then when do they go to the food distribution and the senior center? Because they're asking a lot of questions about them.
I'll defer to the city manager on the prioritization of which sites are going to get it versus the care applications that are coming in. So
Thank you. City Manager.
decision for the city manager, I think, to make.
So our first priority was to get to the seniors. So we've done that. And our next priority should be to fill those orders that we have and simultaneously check in with our own internal departments, because I've told Christopher as well that the next one would be our satellite sites, which include Park Ridge as well, Park Ridge Senior Center, to see what their needs are, and then distribute them as well to our staff, check in with YHC to see, I'm sorry, Ypsilanti Community Schools, YCS, to see
I
if they
understand.
have
Yeah.
needs. Yep. So that's where we are right now. I think we probably had a little kink in the process because we ran out of masks. So we didn't flow as we wanted to, but since then we do have a backup mechanism. I've authorized that we could order some temporary masks and let, which are not washable ones, just so that we wouldn't let them back up. We wouldn't let requests back up. So as of, I think by the end of the week, we should probably be caught up with what we have as far as requests that were made.
So we're considering buying masks, but the goal of the program was to not buy masks because council expressed concern about interrupting the flow of supply for healthcare providers.
So I don't believe that that's an issue anymore. We have not purchased them, but I did tell Christopher if we ever got to a point, I didn't want to have people backed up waiting for supplies. So we do have a way to get them a mask in the meantime. So I didn't want to just put them off.
They've been waiting 5 weeks, so
we've been promised.
But yes, thank you. I'm just confused by the program. Councilor Brown, you wanted to ask a question?
Yeah, just about how the requests have been coming in. I'm just curious because I know that we receive a lot of feedback about individuals inquiring about, like, okay, you can go online and do the online request, but you can also call in. So I just wanted to know, you don't have to give me any specific numbers.
Mm-hmm.
Have people been calling in and utilizing that that avenue of requesting the care packages? Has that not been useful? Like, has that not been happening? Just so I have an understanding of if, we've been actually reaching, our net has been cast as far as possible, so I can continue to support folks who maybe don't have the internet access to go on and fill out the form.
Yeah, so how about I get council an email with some of these questions being asked, because I inquire quite often just to get some feedback. So if you will allow me to get with staff and give you a report, I think that would be better served than going.
Okay.
Thank you.
I have a quick question. I talked to Christopher earlier and it sounded like we were getting chunks of like 400 from Eastern. Is that not, that's correct?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I still think that the waves that we're getting them in is, obviously people need masks right now, but there's also, I mean, we also prioritize them to folks that were in most need. So I guess I'm not really sure what the problem with that is. It seems like the phased-in approach is making sure that the people who really need them are getting them. So it sounds like to me when I talked to Christopher earlier.
Mm-hmm.
I think Eastern, sorry.
So the program is being developed, as you know, as we go along. Originally, we were thinking to just have people reserve one or request one and then pick it up, but it's evolving. The program is evolving. Now we're going to have building department staff helping us to actually deliver some of those. So it is developing as we go along. Everyone didn't have transportation, but that wasn't originally a part of our process. So it's developing as we go along to try to get these masks out to everyone that needs them.
I want to ask a question. With the new resolution we just signed with these restaurants, perhaps having outside seating, will they have access to get some of these masks also? And would they be considered essential workers on the front line with now that restaurants may open back up?
So I believe if they requested a mask, we would not deny them. a mask, but as businesses open up, we are giving them a checklist of things that they should meet, certain requirements as far as masks for their employees, their help. And if in fact they can't meet them, then of course we'll be a resource for them. But that's not our priority. We would actually ask the business owner to do that. And so with this checklist, we're making sure that if they're opening, they need to have these things in place.
It's also a requirement under the executive orders and the reopening plan from the governor that businesses have to provide that.
Okay, I just don't want, people who really need them in our city. And I'm not saying those workers don't need them. I just didn't want to move.
Well, yeah, it's up to the employer.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to move on to my next item of business, which is there's a couple of items that we had mentioned about putting on the agenda that kind of, when we went virtual, virtual meeting or Zoom meeting, they've kind of been set aside. We talked about bringing the 2020 task force report to council for a presentation, and Clerk Kalenga, can we put that in, like a July or August thing? And that would be, exciting to have Councilor Brown relive that committee that she was on many years ago. So that's one thing that I can recall. And there was one other. Oh, I also want to say that there's a couple of projects that were taken off the CIP as we looked at our sparse budget. And the second part of what I was hoping to do with the budget was to prioritize what we would add back in should we find out that the economy recovers smoothly and easily and we don't lose as much money. And so that might be something to look at. I myself have my eye on that propane tank and some of the environmental aspects that we took off. But at any rate, that's something that I'd like staff to take a look at and bring back to council at a future date for us to consider, because we did make some sacrifices in this budget. So that's what I have today, and I believe City Manager, it's you next.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, regarding your last about the CIP, I think as things begin to unfold with the budget, as far as if we receive additional monies from the state than we projected, then of course we would bring certain items back that we took off the list. So I think that'll be done in progression as things improve. I would think it would be kind of premature to bring that back and we don't have any indication that anything is actually going to happen. I think once we know and things begin to happen, then we revisit what we did, and we'll start to bring those things back. Okay, so that was my response to that. Really quickly, I did send out an email today to everyone, just letting you know that the parks are going to reopen on June 8th. If you got any questions about that, feel free to contact myself or Ron. We will have signage at the parks, basically reminding the park goers that they need PPE and reminding of the social distancing requirements, and also letting them know that playing at their own risk, basically meaning that we're depending on you to police your actions and the actions of your children. But that's going to happen on the 8th. And then City Hall is still scheduled to reopen on the 15th. The date wasn't moved up because we're still outfitting our building and things of that nature. And we want to give ourselves time for adequate publication regarding what's needed. And so there's really no need to rush that, because we are still working and we haven't stopped working. So we've been able to do a lot of things from home, and we will continue that way. When we open up on the 15th, it will just be limited hours to the public anyway. But we will release that in a public, in a press release. we will release those hours, those limited hours of operation. And I think that is it. Oh, I wanted to report to Mayor Pro Tem Richardson that we will have some signage. From the Monday meeting, it was mentioned that we needed signage in Park Ridge for vehicles that were parking there illegally. So that is in place, and Ron has already ordered the signage.
Thank you.
That was one of your things. And also a lot of requests for speed humps, and we just need you to give us a little bit of time on that. Staff was concerned about social distancing in order to get that work done, because you need about 4 people working kind of closely. So Ron is looking at the equipment for our workers so that they can start that process. And I believe that's all I have for now. Thank you.
Thank you. City Manager, I know that you're working with staff on the plan for re-upping the various city services. And I think that, you know, like when we heard, you know, council asking for help with ordinance enforcement, you know, we haven't been doing much ordinance enforcement. Minimal, only emergency stuff. We haven't been doing parking enforcement. We haven't, you know, all these things. And so what I'm wondering is, can we get a timeline for the information that you have available at this time for when those various services are going to be re-upped? Because there's, you know, there's questions. People are asking questions, and as we open up, the citizens are going to say, what about my neighbor's yard? You know, over and over again. And so I think this is going to be helpful if you could give that to us.
Yeah, we do plan to do a phased-in approach, and we don't want to add insult to injury. Parking is going to be down the road, of course, because we're going to try to promote getting business people to come back downtown. And if we expand the seating area, there's not going to be, you know, the parking, but we're working on it. So we will try to put together a timeline for when all those things will come back into play.
Thank you. As soon as you can, that would be helpful, and I think the city would appreciate it. Is there any more from you, City Manager?
That's it.
Okay, thank you. I need a motion to adjourn.
Well, the City Manager, I just want to say you're doing a marvelous job, and I have virtual flowers for you.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to acknowledge Mayor Burchard's birthday. Happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday.
Birthday.
You sure know how to have a good time on a decade, Jane.
Well, I'm telling you, this is a heck of a way to spend a birthday. I recommend it to everybody.
Birthday to
Salute. Salute.
Salute.
Thank you. The move, seconded. Go home, everybody. Everybody vote. Go home. Enjoy yourselves. Thank you very much.
Good night.
Good
night, everyone.
Night, everybody.
Bye, Joe. Bye, Andrew.
Bye.
Bye, Kim.
Bye, Jim.